Good morning, everyone. Andrew Douglas in the Action News 5 digital desk. April is Global Child Nutrition Month. May is National Allergy Awareness Month, and that includes food allergies, and that's what we're talking about right now. Each year, about 75,000 infants in the U.S. are born with a cow milk allergy. It's the most common food allergy in infancy. And so in those cases, pediatricians, oftentimes they'll recommend a material elimination diet, which deals with breastfeeding. It deals with switching to maybe a hypoallergenic formula. Let's talk more about this allergy right now with Dr. Jenna Timbo, a pediatrician. She's going to answer some big questions when it comes to infants and babies and this cow milk allergy. Good morning, Dr. Timbo. Let's talk about this allergy. How common is it?
Yeah, so it is incredibly common. It's the most common food allergy in infants. It affects approximately 75,000 infants every year in the United States. So it's out there. We got to be aware of it.
Let me ask you this. What are the signs of it? You know, there's so many people that are having babies in my work environment, newsroom here. They're constantly having babies, and so I think that that's happening all over the country, of course. And I would think that they would want to know some of those first signs of an allergy like this.
Yeah, so some of the signs are fairly specific and maybe easier to recognize. For example, if you're starting to introduce foods to your baby or you're supplementing with regular formula and they have an allergic reaction like hives or something of that sort, that's a little bit easier to recognize. But there's also a lot of non-specific signs or symptoms to be aware of as well. Those could include just having a really fussy baby. Your baby might be labeled as having colic. They could have blood or mucus in the stools or have symptoms of reflux. They could maybe not be gaining weight as well as they should. And those are things to be aware of as other signs of cow milk allergy. My own daughter has a cow milk allergy that was diagnosed around 4.5 months old. And before her allergic reaction, she was absolutely miserable breastfeeding. She wouldn't sleep. She was so fussy. And throughout her diagnosis, we wound up stopping breastfeeding and changing her to a hypoallergenic formula. And it changed our lives. So if you have concerns about your baby's symptoms, definitely talk with your doctor. We're happy to help. And that's why I'm partnering with Nutricia to bring Pepticate to the United States. It's a hypoallergenic formula that's been available in Europe for 30 years, and now it's an option here as well.
Okay, let's talk about how breastfeeding is involved in all this and more about that hypoallergenic formula you just showed us.
Yeah, so the hypoallergenic formula basically takes a big cow milk protein and breaks it down into much smaller pieces. So it's called an extensively hydrolyzed formula. The protein's very small, and it makes it difficult for the immune system to recognize as an allergy. So the babies then can drink it and tolerate it well without having an allergic reaction. One of the benefits of this formula in particular is that it contains lactose, which makes it taste better. So that's another issue that I went through with my own child is we were giving her multiple different options of formulas for babies with allergies, but she wouldn't take them because they tasted terrible. And so we felt stuck in that we were running out of options. So I'm really excited to have this as an option in the US.
How is breastfeeding involved in all this? I mean, do you recommend to some of your patients or patients' parents to breastfeed longer? How does it work?
It's really a case-by-case basis. So I would definitely recommend if you have questions, because that's a huge decision to make to potentially stop breastfeeding and change to a formula, definitely talk to your doctor because we can help guide you through that on if that's the right choice to make.
How can caregivers navigate the current baby formula shortage if their child is diagnosed with a milk allergy, doctor?
So thankfully, we're in a little bit better place now than we were in 2022 with the formula shortage, with the shelves being restocked. But if you're having trouble locating a formula or a hypoallergenic formula, definitely talk to your doctor because we can help give recommendations as far as where you could find it or what options you may have.
Okay, this is very interesting. I know we have thousands of people watching us each and every morning. I'm sure there's plenty of parents out there that are watching as well. If some parents want to get some more information about what we talked about here, cow milk allergy for infants, where can they go?
You can go to pepticate.com to learn more, or of course, talk to your doctor. We're happy to help.
All righty, Dr. Jenna Timbo, pediatrician, talking about this cow milk allergy, very common among infants. We appreciate the info, doctor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, let's take a live look right now from our High Five camera in downtown Memphis. Is that gorgeous or what? I mean, that looks like a perfect, beautiful spring morning at 8:06, 64 degrees, lots of sunshine, lots of blue skies as well. Here's the problem, though. We got severe weather coming our way. It's not supposed to be anything super severe, only a 2 out of 5, but that means thunderstorms coming in later this evening and then some cold temperatures, a cold snap on the way. I guess they call it a blueberry winter, I think, blackberry winter, something like that. Meteorologist Spencer Denton has more.
Hey, I'm Action News 5 meteorologist Spencer Denton. As we go through the day, we're going to see temperatures topping out the low to mid 80s, partly cloudy, but mostly cloudy. By evening, we'll see a south wind at about 10 to 20 miles per hour. Check out these wind gusts. Could see those up toward 30 miles per hour this afternoon, so certainly a windy day ahead. Then tonight, rain and storms, heavy rain at times, 60 degrees for a low. Severe threat looks very low with this system, but we're going to see a big amount of rain as it moves in. Here's what to expect, though. This front is going to be the reason for scattered showers and storms to continue all the way through tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night. Most of this moves out and cooler air arrives across the Mid-South as we go into the weekend. So we're looking at a big cool down behind this system. But ahead of it, we could see a few strong storms again. It's a very low severe risk right now, at least a 1 or a 2 out of 5. Could see a little bit of high wind or hail in parts of eastern Arkansas. I think most storms it's just going to be heavy rain. Let's talk about the timing and futurecast as we go through the days. See clouds, we'll see those moving in as we go through the afternoon and evening hours. And then here comes the rain by tonight, 8 to 10 p.m., continuing off and on, wet ride to work and school tomorrow. And then look at this, that rain continues to redevelop along that front as we go through the afternoon. So very wet conditions for your Friday, but then it all moves out just in time for Friday night and for the weekend. Temperatures quickly fall into the 40s and 50s. Check out how much rain is going to fall with this system, 1 to 2 inches in most areas of the Mid-South. So big soaking for through Friday night. And then as we go into the weekend, you want to keep that Action News 5 First Alert weather app handy because it will be tracking temperatures in the 40s for lows Saturday and Sunday night, highs in the 60s. We have rain chances returning by the middle of next week.
The family of Tyre Nichols is filing a $500 million lawsuit. It lists 12 defendants, including the city of Memphis, Police Chief C.J. Davis, and the 5 former police officers facing murder charges in his death. It also names Memphis Police Lieutenant Dwayne Smith for intentional infliction of emotional distress after they claim he lied to Nichols' mother about why Tyre was being arrested, claiming he was intoxicated.
And if we don't hold all of them responsible from the top to the bottom, shame on us.
And if the courts award the Nichols family this money, the bill would be paid for by taxpayers. Memphis Mayor Jim Strickland says the city will begin enforcing a curfew for kids in downtown Memphis. The mayor's statement comes after a meeting on Tuesday. Action News 5's Walter Murphy reports.
The juvenile crime abatement program scrapped. Now, Memphis and state leaders are speaking out about the scratched program and the need for something to stop the potential summer wave of crime committed by kids. In a written statement, Memphis Mayor Jim Strickland says that there will be a new focus on enforcing the city's curfew that's been on the books since 1996. The statement reads in part, "In recent years, we have not been able to enforce that law because juvenile court and county facilities will not take the juveniles detained for violations. Once we begin the pilot, we will take the juveniles to a city-owned facility, call their parents, wait for them to pick their child up, and cite them to juvenile court." We asked where that facility would be, but did not immediately hear back.
Right now, it's no secret to everyone in the city that children who are out late at night tend to find themselves getting into trouble.
Using the old adage, nothing good happens after midnight, State Senator London Lamar says that she's behind that curfew 100%.
We need to make sure this curfew is enforced to the highest degree and that parents take responsibility for knowing where their kids are late at night. Children have no business out past 11 or 12 o'clock at night.
And with a new pause in the prosecution of 18 to 20-year-olds carrying handguns without permits, Senator Lamar says the earlier we can get kids off the streets and inside of the house, the better.
I am very fearful of the implications it can have on youth in this city, and if we can make sure they're home at adequate hours to keep our children safe.
In Memphis, Walter Murphy, Action News 5.
Barricade situation in Frazier ended when Memphis police say the suspect took his own life. Investigators say around 10:30 yesterday morning, an officer was shot in the leg while serving an arrest warrant here at the Breezy Point Apartments. Investigators say the suspect then fenced himself inside his apartment, and after trying to make contact with him, detectives say they sent in a robot into the apartment, discovered the suspect's body. 2 others were taken into custody during this incident. This year's session of the Tennessee General Assembly dismisses at the end of this week. The majority there shows no interest in passing gun control legislation, despite the governor's encouragement to do so. Joyce Peterson has more.
Each year, more than 100,000 criminal cases are heard in Shelby County. 14 judicial commissioners appointed by the Shelby County Commission help the elected judges with the massive workload by setting bail.
It's a transparency bill and an accountability bill.
State Representative John Gillespie sponsored House Bill 830, requiring judges, not judicial commissioners, to decide bail for the most serious crimes. He did this after high-profile cases in the community, including the suspect in a Whitehaven golf course attack that left the victim with brain injuries, let out on $5,000 bail. And a murder suspect in Millington, the teen victim shot in the head, out on the street, bail just $10,000. Gillespie's bill also requires
if you're out on bail and you commit another crime, then a new bail hearing would have to be set, and the amount would be twice the amount that's normally customary for that offense.
The legislation says judges only can set bail on Class A and Class B felonies like murder, carjacking, and aggravated rape, along with aggravated assaults and felony domestic assault cases. Shelby County Mayor Lee Harris, who holds a law degree from Yale, applauds the effort.
I think most people think that's a pretty good idea. Judges should be setting the bail, generally speaking. Again, we have to kind of have have to have practical considerations around the volume, and I think that's where the judicial commissioners comes into being. But yeah, I think we'd rather have judges, absolutely.
And Shelby County Commissioner Mick Wright says the bill may kickstart a sluggish legal system. Local judges have been holding very few trials.
I've been in discussions about how do we increase the number of cases that we're processing. Reports have said that we're only getting through, 35 cases in a year. And so if they're not doing that, I'm not sure what they're doing.
That's it. Governor Lee said his proposal is not a red flag law, said the term is, quote, toxic political labeling meant to draw lines in the sand so nothing gets done. Of course, time is running out for state lawmakers. The session, as we mentioned, is expected to wrap up at the end of this week, but the governor could always call for a special session later this year. Federal judge ruled the state of Mississippi has to develop a religious exemption for school vaccinations. The families who filed suit say the absence of religious exemptions hurts children by forcing their parents to homeschool them or move them out of the state. Supporters of the ruling say it's a victory for the First Amendment, while others say they're worried about unintended consequences.
Once we made it into court, it was obvious that they were violating our religious liberties and that our laws are against the Constitution.
Well, if the children who can receive the vaccines start going unvaccinated, then that allows more and more children in that vulnerable situation to get these vaccine preventable illnesses.
Mississippi does have a medical vaccination exception, but it's one of only 6 states without a religious exemption. Okay, let's see, the U.S. Supreme Court is leaving women's access to an abortion pill untouched until at least tomorrow, while justices consider whether to allow restrictions to take effect on the abortion pill. So the court is dealing with this new abortion issue less than a year after it sent Roe v. Wade back to the states. At stake now is whether to allow restrictions on the drug to take effect, while legal challenge to the FDA approval continues. All right, college AP exams start May 1st. Do you remember taking those AP exams? You know, they really do matter. You know, a lot of people say, they don't matter. No, they do. And it's a big deal, and it's something that we should talk about with our friend David Blobom joining us on the Action News 5 digital desk. Now, we knew David way back when, but he has gone national now. He's a recognized expert in the entrance exam, college admission industries, the director of outreach for the National Test Prep Association. David, welcome back to the Action News 5 digital desk. How are you?
Thanks. Doing great. It's great to be here. And actually, Angela's segment also applies to high school students, so they definitely need to check their social media as well.
Oh, yeah, Angela's fantastic, and I agree with you. Yeah, you can apply that in so many different ways. But, you know, the AP exams, they start May 1st. So I've had kids that are dealing with that, and they've dealt with that in the past. What do you tell people? Because a lot of people, well, they don't matter, but they really do, don't they?
Yes, so they matter in some ways that students don't think about because they're in high school and it matters for college. So there's 3 main ways that AP exams help students. So if you can get AP credit in college, then you can take fewer courses in college and have an easier time, or you can potentially graduate early and save money, or you can get rid of those core requirements early and then take more advanced classes in your interests. The less important usage of them is for admissions and actually getting accepted to the schools. It's really only the top schools that look at AP exam scores like that, but that's a consideration as well. And students just need to keep in mind, they're like any other tests. Preparation is key, but they can succeed.
That is a great breakdown of why it's so important. I mean, various reasons here. Fewer courses, get to graduate early, maybe an opportunity to take some other advanced courses. No, that's great. That's great. What do parents need to know when it comes to studying for these exams? I know that the studying can be overwhelming at times for some students.
Yeah, so the best way to do that prep is hopefully they're doing it in school, but students should be taking released AP exams and seeing how they're doing on those released exams. And then, you know, if it's AP chemistry, seeing what topics did they miss, and then just making sure that they go to their teacher at school, or they learn those topics on their own, or they enlist the help of a good tutor who will actually help them learn those topics.
Fantastic. You know, I always enjoyed our conversations early on, David, when we talked about the SAT and the ACT, because there's so much emphasis on that, although there have been some colleges that have kind of excluded that in their admissions process, or so they say. You know, I've asked this question before, but I think it's an important question to ask again. When it comes to your students who are getting ready for college admissions, should they take the SAT or the ACT? Which one should they take, and why should they take it?
Yeah, so there has been a lot of confusion about it. And there are some schools that are test blind, meaning they won't even look at your SAT, ACT results, even if you send them. But that's only 6% of schools in the country. 88% of schools in the country are what's called test optional, which means they're inviting you to send your SAT and ACT scores because they still care about SAT and ACT scores. And so good scores will always help a student's chances of admission, more merit aid, and scholarships. So the tests really are still advantageous, and students should take a practice exam or potentially the real exam of either, because you can pick and choose which test dates you want to send into colleges. So there's no downside to taking the real test. But once you figure out which test is the best for you, you can just keep taking that until you hit your score goal. You want to finish by November 1st of your senior year, because that's when early application deadlines for early decision and early action deadlines are for most colleges. So for the SAT, students can still take the May, June, August, and October SATs. For the ACT, they can still take the June, July, September, and October tests. So plenty of opportunities.
Should students go into it with a goal? I know with my kids, and they're past this process now. We had a goal that 30 on the ACT. That was our goal. If you can get 30 or above, we will reward you with a financial stipend. But is that a good idea? I mean, I guess you really got to know your child and what motivates them to do well, right?
So that's a fantastic idea. And there's two ways to break that down. You can look up the schools that you're applying to, and a lot of them will just have a chart of if you get this score and have this GPA, which the GPA limits are much easier to hit. So basically, if you hit this SAT or ACT score, we're going to give you this much money per year, maybe $10,000, $15,000. So definitely look up on the school's websites, can I get money for a certain score? So that's for getting money. Then there's the admissions piece. And as far as setting a score goal for an admissions piece, I would look up all those schools again and look up their median SAT and ACT score. You want your SAT and ACT score to hit that or be above that for your scores to actually help you in admissions.
Let me ask you this. One of the last conversations we had, David, was about ChatGPT. And it's so interesting because right after we had that conversation, I saw it everywhere. Like everyone was talking about ChatGPT. So I like to say we're on the cutting edge here on the digital desk with you. How has that changed the test, if it has at all?
So speaking of the cutting edge, the last time we talked about it, it was version 3. Now, version 4 just came out a few weeks ago. It's changed everything again. And I should preface this with, I'm not encouraging students to do this because they shouldn't be doing this. But what students are doing now that version 4 is out is version 4 can almost perfectly copy the writing style of any writing that you put into it. So what students are doing is they're taking the essays of students who have been admitted to top colleges. They're inputting those essays and then saying, write my application essay in that style. And Johns Hopkins, for instance, on their website, which they should really remove, there's over 40 essays that worked. And so students can literally just put, I tried it out, and they can just put that into ChatGPT, say, write this essay for me, and in under a minute, they will get a top 1% essay. So if colleges don't adapt, they're really in trouble. They really need to do either proctored essays or interviews or do something to guarantee authentic content from their applicants.
That really sounds very scary and a big issue they need to address ASAP. I would think, David, that they would kind of highlight it when it comes to, the ACT or the SAT. Got to do the essay, of course, in person. But wow, for an application, I don't know how you make sure it's authentic.
I completely agree. And the SAT, unfortunately, actually discontinued its essay, and the ACT still has its essay, but no one needs to take it because colleges don't even look at it. So I really think that they need to rethink that, because right now they don't have any verified content from applicants. And to be honest, this was already a problem. I mean, you can Google write my application essays for me, and there's a million firms that are out there to write your essays for you. Again, students should not do that, but it was always provided basically to the wealthy. The irony is ChatGPT has now allowed everyone to cheat. It's democratized cheating, which is wrong, but hopefully it will be enough to push colleges to actually fix the problem that already existed and is just much larger now.
Wow, interesting stuff. Very cutting edge as always, David. Thank you for that. What else can we talk about with regards to AP exams, SAT, ACT, that whole process that we haven't talked about already?
And one thing to put on people's radar is that next year, the SAT is changing from its current format from a 3-hour paper exam into a 2-hour digital exam. That's going to be adaptive. So it's actually a good change, but for any families who have a sophomore right now, they need to be aware that in the middle of their child's junior year, that SAT is going to completely change. So the current SAT is only going to be offered until December 2023. The next SAT that's offered is in March of 2024. Very different test. So students should not start prepping for the current SAT unless they know that they'll be done by December if they're going to be a junior next year, or they should take the ACT. So something to consider.
Dumb question. How does the 2-hour digital exam differ from what the exam is now?
It's a great question. So the math and grammar are basically the same, but it's the reading that's going to change. And instead of being, a long reading passage and then maybe 10 questions on that reading passage, students will only get one short passage and then one question on that short passage. So no more long passages. There's also just more reasoning questions and some actually cool questions. I actually think that they did a good job on the remake, but this first year of students will unfortunately be guinea pigs for the new test.
Yeah, that's wild. I always enjoy talking with you because you know what's coming and you know like where we are in terms of testing and maybe how to get an edge and what students and parents need to know about. Anything else you want to mention before we let you go, David? This has been great, very helpful.
Thank you. Just if families would like a vetted list of the best tutors, they can head to nationaltestprep.org, and we would be happy to, help you find the best tutors in your area.
Awesome, David Blobom. We really appreciate your expertise and your thoughts and all that valuable information you're sharing with so many people here in Memphis and across the Mid-South. Thanks very much.
My pleasure.
Hey, I'm Action News 5 meteorologist Spencer Denton. As we go through the day, we're going to see temperatures topping out the low to mid 80s, partly cloudy, but mostly cloudy. By evening, we'll see a south wind at about 10 to 20 miles per hour. Check out these wind gusts. Could see those up toward 30 miles per hour this afternoon, so certainly a windy day ahead. Then tonight, rain and storms, heavy rain at times, 60 degrees for a low. Severe threat looks very low with this system, but we're going to see a big amount of rain as it moves in. Here's what to expect, though. This front is going to be the reason for scattered showers and storms to continue all the way through tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night. Most of this moves out and cooler air arrives across the Mid-South as we go into the weekend. So we're looking at a big cool down behind this system. But ahead of it, we could see a few strong storms again. It's a very low severe risk right now, at least a 1 or a 2 out of 5. Could see a little bit of high wind or hail in parts of eastern Arkansas. I think most storms it's just going to be heavy rain. Let's talk about the timing and futurecast as we go through the days. See clouds, we'll see those moving in as we go through the afternoon and evening hours. And then here comes the rain by tonight, 8 to 10 p.m., continuing off and on, wet ride to work and school tomorrow. And then look at this, that rain continues to redevelop along that front as we go through the afternoon. So very wet conditions for your Friday, but then it all moves out just in time for Friday night and for the weekend. Temperatures quickly fall into the 40s and 50s. Check out how much rain is going to fall with this system, 1 to 2 inches in most areas of the Mid-South. So big soaking for through Friday night. And then as we go into the weekend, you want to keep that Action News 5 First Alert weather app handy because it will be tracking temperatures in the 40s for lows Saturday and Sunday night, highs in the 60s. We have rain chances returning by the middle of next week.
Are you in the market for a new ride? You know, either a new car, a used car. Of course, that'll be new for you. Well, the car buying game has changed dramatically. Shoppers, a lot of times, they can go online, they can do their research, look at various buying tools to their advantage. That can lead to better deals, smarter buying decisions, higher satisfaction in the long run. So let's get some expert advice on how to navigate the car buying process. I'm joined now on the Action News 5 digital desk by Motor Trend editor Duncan Brady, who's live with us. And I can tell that you have a couple of cars there, Duncan. Good morning. Tell us about your top tips for buying a car right now.
Hey, Andrew. Good morning. Thanks for having me. So if we have one tip, it's that you got to do your research. You know, you want to be the expert when you walk into that dealership. And as you mentioned, folks who use online tools like the Buyer's Guide, who become the expert, they're the ones who get better deals, who have higher long-term satisfaction.
I see you have a couple of cars there. Tell us about the cars that you're right now in the middle of.
We do. So we have an ultimate ranking system here at Motor Trend, and these are two of our favorite vehicles. The Kia Telluride you see here, this is our favorite three-row family SUV. It was our SUV of the year a few years back, and this year brings a mid-cycle refresh. So tweaks to the already excellent styling, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with. There's new tech inside, plus you get a couple off-road variants, including the X-Pro on your screen right now. Did you know this Kia has 14 interior upholstery options? That's bananas. That's Bentley stuff. It's easy to see, especially considering that the base model has the big screen, has Apple CarPlay, has adaptive cruise control. Easy to see why this is our favorite three-row SUV. And then, of course, we have the Volvo XC40 Recharge, one of our favorite electric compact luxury SUVs. I said electric, there's no engine under there, motors and batteries. And this Volvo is really quick. I was giggling the first time I drove it. It's quicker than some Mustangs and Camaros, but it's a Volvo, right? These are the folks who brought us the 3-point safety belt back in 1959. So it's really safe. It has all of the driver assist active safety features you want, but it's also very crash worthy. It gets great crash test ratings. It's a 2022 IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus. You're seeing the interior right now. It's pretty luxurious. We have a Google-based infotainment and navigation system. There's Apple CarPlay. The car we have in studio right now has a really handsome vegan tailored wool upholstery option. You know, I'm a big fan of this Volvo.
Hey, Duncan, what's the MSRPs on both of those vehicles? They, of course, look very nice.
Good question. I'm not exactly sure. I believe the Kia is somewhere in that $45,000 range, and the Volvo might be closer to $60,000.
Okay, so, you know, the last year we were dealing with a lot of supply chain issues with cars to the point where people were going for used cars, and used cars were more expensive in certain situations than the new cars. Is that supply chain issue with all the computer chips, has that been resolved now?
Getting better, yes. Dealers have a lot more inventory than they had a few years ago, and we're not dealing with the same level of chip shortage that we had in years past.
Okay, so I know you are an editor for Motor Trend. They put out all kinds of publications year-round, including the Buyer's Guide. Tell me how it enhances someone who's in the market for a new ride.
So we talked about doing your research earlier. The Buyer's Guide is our research headquarters. We have 3 outstanding tools plus vehicle overview pages on literally every car on sale. We have a great team here in El Segundo, and I want to talk about those tools. So we have CarMatch. That's the closest you can get to giving me a call and asking for personalized buying advice. Really, these are the same questions I'd ask my mom, my dad, if their name popped up on my phone. You know, you answer those questions, you see, and we give you a few recommendations. The whole process takes about 30 seconds. I mentioned Ultimate Car Rankings. We rank nearly every car on sale, cars, trucks, SUVs, in over 45 segments. So, you know, if you want to see what's best in some automotive segment, we have the answers for you there. And it's all backed by Motor Trend's testing expertise and the features, safety, fuel economy that buyers want to know about. Once you narrow it down, have a few options, Car Compare will save you a bunch of time. Instead of going to dealership websites, sifting through all that sales nonsense, you can see the pricing, the fuel economy, all the specs right there in one place.
Let me ask you this, Duncan. We have thousands of people that watch us on the Digital Desk each and every morning. And if someone is thinking, you know, I probably by the end of this year need to start looking for a new vehicle, where would you tell them to start? I mean, give me, like, if you would, maybe 3 bullet points. What should they do?
Sure. So you probably already know your budget, right? But then you want to think about, what kind of car do I need? Do I need a bunch of cargo space? Do I need off-road capability? Then you'll go for an SUV. But if you prioritize, say, fuel economy and driving dynamics, then you'd go for something like a hatchback or sedan. But again, you just got to do the research. We're the ones who get the chance and have the privilege to drive all of the cars on sale, more or less. And I really trust the folks on staff here to give strong recommendations and make sure folks buy the right car.
Okay, Motor Trend editor Duncan Brady, we really appreciate your time this morning. Thanks for the insight, the info, and take care of yourself, man.
Thanks for having me. All the good stuff is at motortrend.com/cars.
Okay, Duncan, thank you. Let's talk now about Memphis City Schools, and it's almost over, if you can believe it or not, the school year. Memphis Shelby County Schools looking to the future. Big registration night, just more than a week away. This is next Thursday, so that's 1 week from today. It starts at 5 o'clock that evening, and that is, again, all schools for Memphis City Schools. Okay, so Memphis Congressman Steve Cohen wrote a letter to Governor Bill Lee asking if he could waive the TCAP, the Tennessee Comprehensive Assessment Program for students in parts of Covington that's been affected by the tornado damage. He said, quote, providing as much time as possible to allow these students to recover and readjust to their new learning environments will help them put their best foot forward when taking standardized tests. Of course, we know about TCAP starting Monday statewide, and we know that Covington was one of the hardest hit areas of some of those storms that we saw at the end of March. Community members are still recovering and cleaning up. All right, let's talk about one of my favorite stories of the morning. The Grizzlies coming through in Game 2. They've tied the series, the best of 7 series, 1 apiece. They beat the Lakers last night. In this round 1 of the playoffs, we have Action News 5's Bria Bolden with fan reaction to the big game.
The Memphis Grizzlies and the Los Angeles Lakers, 2 teams with NBA stars and diehard fans.
Ja, LeBron, AD, I mean, it's must see in person, like, get there. So we here. Like, that's the game. This is the game to be at. Out of all the playoffs.
Of course, a win. Of course.
We're expecting a big win tonight, and for our crowd, our home crowd, to be hyped tonight and give the Grizz that energy. Let's go. Big Memphis.
Game 2 at FedEx Forum brought out the swag and fashion, even some family rivalries.
We don't have Ja, but we can still do good tonight. And you guys don't have Steven Adams, so that don't matter.
Playoff time in Memphis has thousands of Grizzlies fans filling up FedEx Forum and the pregame plaza parties.
I've been looking forward to this all day. Memphis is going to win. We're going to rock this thing. We got music going on. We got the vibe of Memphis.
Great energy. We ready. We ready. Go Grizzlies.
Inside the Forum, the Grizzlies held on for the win without Ja Morant, but the Lakers not too far behind the whole game. Memphians confident going to LA. The Grizzlies will win this series.
Everybody's out here having a good time, and they know it's going to go 6 games. They know the last game, the 6th game will be right here, and we're going to win it all.
Love his outfit there. The Grizz and Lakers series now goes to Los Angeles for games 3 and 4. Game 3 set for Saturday night. Tip-off is at 9 o'clock. Also want to remind you that our sports director, Doc Holliday, is going to give you coverage here on Action News 5 from Los Angeles. He'll be covering the Grizzlies on the road for games 3 and 4. Again, tip-off set for 9 o'clock. Just a few hundred tickets remain for the St. Jude Dream Home giveaway. And in addition to the beautiful home in Arlington for the very first time, worth about $575,000, you could also win a $10,000 Visa gift card and a sterling silver cuff bracelet with gold and diamond accents. Huge prize supporting St. Jude and finding cures and saving lives. We have Action News 5's Joy Redman talking about a mission that is so near and dear to the hearts of so many people, including one specific woman you're about to meet. Take a look.
Of the thousands of people who work at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, each one of them is special in their own way. But there's something extra special about Marshetta Brasley Rogers.
Oh my gosh.
If her bright smile, contagious friendliness, and tender spirit don't grab your attention, her love for the work she does at St. Jude certainly will.
It is very fulfilling when I work with patients and families to help them understand that they have control over the things that happen to them, over the direction that their life takes. And I can help them to exercise that.
For more than a decade, Brasley Rogers worked as a teacher and administrator in public schools. She currently serves as school advocacy coordinator for the St. Jude School Program by Chili's, a job she never saw herself doing.
I knew that St. Jude was here, and I knew that they served kids with cancer. I saw the commercials, but I didn't know that there was even a place for me here as an educator. When I saw that they had a school and there was an opening for someone that would like to connect patients and families with school resources, I thought, oh, that's me. That's my jam.
3 years later, and Brasley Rogers is still rocking and rolling with the life-saving hospital. The native Memphian has a bachelor's in music therapy from Tennessee Technological University, but she found her true calling when she got her second degree from a school in...
Yes, ma'am. Big Memphis.
The one and only University of Memphis. The Tiger alum says she loved her previous job, but she knew she had to go back to school to fulfill her true passion.
Every Monday, I got to work in schools in the special education classroom, and I liked my job, but I loved Mondays. I loved Mondays. And so after about a year doing that, I thought I could like my job and love one day, or I could go back to school and love every day.
Brasley Rogers can confirm she loves all 5 days of her work week at St. Jude, and here's one of the many reasons why.
As I was having lunch and I dropped my water in the floor, and I went to clean it up and I couldn't find it because the floor was so shiny, it was just so clean. And I thought, you know, everyone here takes such pride in the work that they do because they know that in the end, it's in service of children, from people that clean the building to people that research medicine to school coordinators to the doctors. Everybody just does such a great job because we understand what the end is.
An end that will hopefully lead to a new beginning, a world where kids live cancer-free.
Okay, in a couple days, thousands of people expected to attend a concert at a popular facility that's been closed, get this, since the fall of 2019, pre-pandemic. And whether you were a frequent visitor to the venue or it's your first time, you're going to notice some major changes. At Bank Plus Amphitheater at Snowden Grove, Kim Clark gives us a preview.
Workers put the finishing touch on renovations at the Bank Plus Amphitheater at Snowden Grove, just off Getwell in South Haven, Mississippi. Work that began in late 2020.
It was very different than what you see behind us. Only the green seats were here previously.
Todd Mastery is executive director of the Landers Center and the Bank Plus Amphitheater, which originally opened in 2006 as the Snowden Grove Amphitheater. Mastery is also overseer of all the current changes at the amphitheater, which included adding gray seats in what used to be the lawn area for more casual seating.
We found from doing our research around the country and here regionally that amphitheaters had moved more to a more permanent seating and less lawn.
The change gives the amphitheater now roughly 8,500 permanent seats, 10,500 if you count the pit area and what's left of lawn seating.
We also added in a number of premium experiences. There's 3 different levels to our premium experience. Each one of them have access to the brand new Premium Lounge, which is a restaurant quality indoor facility.
The Premium Lounge is also now air conditioned.
So when it's the middle of August, you've got an opportunity there to go inside, get something to eat or drink, and take a little break from the weather.
According to Mastery, the changes were not only about seating, but also about increasing the guest experience in general.
But we doubled the restrooms here, which is important to everyone. Previously, there were 0 permanent concession stands. So we added in a huge commissary and then 3 other concession stands surrounding.
Another major improvement, the entrance and exits for concert goers.
There's 1 main entrance. Now we have 3 entrances into the amphitheater.
In addition to the Snowden Lane entrance, there's now one off Getwell and Nail Road. There's also an added benefit for the bands that perform on stage.
They had to step off property to have their catering. We now have a catering area specifically for the artists, and I know they'll be happy about that.
According to Mastery, the changes at the amphitheater mirror what's happening nearby.
Everything around us is continuing to grow with the ballparks, the soccer area, Silas Square across the street. There's now so much to do. So when you come, you're headed here, could be at 3 o'clock in the afternoon for a Saturday show, to spend some time taking in the sights and sounds, getting something to eat, getting something to drink, checking out retail stores, then coming over here, taking in a show. Maybe you're letting the traffic get out and you're going to have something to eat before you head home.
Tickets for 9 shows are already on sale, and one of the first bands includes a hometown favorite.
Ingram Hills lead singer is Justin Moore, who is a local kid from here, from the Mid-South. He previously worked here before. Ingram Hills, a local band. It's just kind of a full circle.
Tickets for a 10th show at the Bank Plus Amphitheater will go on sale in May.
Right now, the season looks to finish potentially with the Goo Goo Dolls in September, but we do have more that we're going to announce. We're going to have more shows coming. Again, everything that we've done here really is to enhance the guest experience. The music, the sound that was here has always been very good. We wanted to make sure that everything outside of that was just as good as the sound and the bands that everyone was hearing.
The Bank Plus Amphitheater at Snowden Grove, growing with its South Haven neighbors and making guests feel more at home. In South Haven, Kim Clark, Action News 5.
Gas versus electric, which is better in the kitchen? That's a debate, certainly. I know people who feel strongly on both sides of the issue. Bottom line report right now from Ariana Poindexter helps you figure out which one is the best for your home. Check it out.
Last year, Leah Brickley said farewell to her gas range and bought an induction range for her home kitchen. As a professional chef and baker, she was conflicted.
I was a little nervous when they actually pulled the gas stove out and put the induction in, but I haven't looked back, and I don't miss cooking on gas at all.
Consumer Reports' Paul Hope says if you're looking to replace an old range, don't let fear of the unfamiliar keep you from switching to induction.
Induction uses an oscillating magnetic field to actually transfer energy directly from the element to the pan. The result is it's much more efficient and it heats up faster too.
And contrary to what you may have heard, you probably won't need to buy all new cookware.
It's true that induction only works with magnetic cookware, but that really isn't as limiting as it sounds. Cast iron, most stainless steel, even an enameled cast iron Dutch oven all work. If you're not sure, stick a magnet to your pan. If the magnet sticks to it, it's going to work with induction.
What doesn't work? Aluminum, but anodized aluminum might.
Traditionally, anodized aluminum cookware didn't work with induction, but more and more we're seeing pieces like this that come with a special base that's induction compatible.
Another plus in CR's range tests, induction burners typically outperform other types of cooktop burners. This Frigidaire earns top scores for low and high heat cooking, plus very good scores for baking, and costs thousands less than many of the other recommended inductions in CR's ratings. If you're not ready to be fully inducted into the induction club, CR also checked out several portable induction cooktops.
Portable induction cooktop is a really good option if you routinely entertain or find yourself without enough free burners on your stove.
This one from Duxtop heats fast, offers steady simmering, and masters melting. And just like full-size induction cooktops, they're very easy to clean.
Okay, Consumer Reports says if you're making the switch, you'll likely need to pay an electrician to install a new outlet. So that costs usually a few $100s. Check this out here. We showed this on the news earlier this morning. Look at that. There's a North Carolina man. He holds the new state record for a paddlefish. My gosh, that thing's a monster. Caught this on Cherokee Lake. It weighed 149 pounds, 80 inches long. And scary as hell. Good morning, everyone. Andrew Douglas in the Action News 5 digital desk. I want to tell you about some new research that finds nearly half of American workers, okay, so we're talking nearly half, would leave their company if offered 3 months of severance. Okay, this is a Career Optimism Index study that was released just a few weeks ago. I got John Woods on the line here at the Action News 5 digital desk. He is the Chief Academic Officer, University of Phoenix, Executive Director, University of Phoenix Career Institute, to discuss the findings. John, good morning. You know, the first time I heard about this new research, I thought, wait a second. Half of workers would leave their job with just 3 months severance? Don't they have bills to pay? Don't they know that, you know, economic conditions aren't the greatest right now? How did you see these numbers?
Yeah, it's a really interesting statistic, especially since we also found in the survey that a lot of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So for the exact reason you mentioned, really surprising. A lot of people are also looking or say they're going to be looking for a new job. So a majority of the survey respondents said they're currently scanning the market for a new job or plan to do so in the near term. And in spite of those statistics, as the name of the survey would indicate, Americans are super confident, optimistic about their career and career prospects. So a lot of interesting information for both employers to be aware of, as well as employees.
I mean, John, I saw a report yesterday, I think it was CNBC, that said everything looks like we are heading into a recession, or a recession is going to happen sometime later this year. I don't know what kind of information half of American workers are seeing where they feel very optimistic that in 3 months they'll be able to find a job. I mean, the bills don't stop after 3 months. Can you tell me what the key drivers are with this optimism that they're having?
Yeah, it's as if American workers have sort of a free agent mentality. They're optimistic that they could get another position if they had to. They feel ready to do a job search if needed. They feel like they either have the skills or could attain the skills to get a different job. And this optimism that they have is really coming from themselves more than it's coming from anything employers are doing for them. In fact, there's a dissatisfaction with what employers are doing. So if employers are concerned about turnover, and nearly 75% say they are in the survey, there's some things they need to be doing to better engage their workers and to have a better chance of keeping them.
Yeah, so John, it's interesting, not only in my profession, but across the board. I think you probably have seen it, that a lot of employers are having a hard time keeping talent in-house, and we're just seeing that everywhere. In your best guess, and perhaps maybe this survey gave you some key indications, but what can employers do to retain some of that top talent that they have working for them?
Yeah, turnover is costly. Having open positions is certainly costly. Always having to onboard and train new people is costly. And so proactively, you want to try and keep as many of your people as you can. And the survey indicates that about 70% of workers would stay if some things changed, if employers did some things to try and keep them. And the top three things they indicate, the first is training and development opportunities so that they could upskill, maybe obtain new skills to do additional things for the organization, to get ahead within the organization, maybe tuition reimbursement programs. The second thing is if an organization could deliver for employees a mentorship program. So assigning employees to a formal mentor who could help with career planning, career pathing, kind of take a strategic approach to each employee's growth and development. And the third one is around employee engagement programs, things like employee resource groups, things like mental health benefits. These are the sorts of things that employers are needing to provide if they want to keep their employees engaged, happy, and less likely to leave.
Interesting. I like that list of three there. Let's talk about this, the half of Americans out there who would leave after a 3-month severance from their employer. How can employees prepare themselves for their next career move? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think ask your current employer or a prospective employer if they offer training, development, upskilling, further education programs, if they have benefits that support those. And then networking is a big one. And then within the networking realm, try and find somebody who could be a mentor. That person can be someone who has the job that you want one day, or has maybe had it and progressed even further in their career. And that person can really help make introductions to other people, provide guidance, suggestions, support. So I think that sort of spells out an always-on approach to thinking proactively about one's career. What are the skills needed? Who do you need to know? Is there somebody who could formally become a mentor and help you along the way? That's kind of the recipe.
John, this is an interesting conversation. Is there any maybe tidbit that we missed that you think is relevant to what we're talking about?
Yeah, I think it's that caution for employers that workers these days more than ever see themselves as free agents. And the cost of turnover, certainly everyone's aware that those are huge, have huge implications for businesses. So the things they're already doing need to be better communicated, or otherwise they're wasted expenses, wasted efforts. And if they're not doing those things, they're going to see turnover because employers are, as the survey indicates, employees are willing and ready to walk, and they are free agents. So, pay attention to the things that workers are asking for. You'll keep more of them and keep them more happy and productive.
Got it. Okay. We have thousands of people that watch us each and every day here on the Digital Desk, John. Any place that they can go online and kind of hear and look and maybe listen to some of the numbers that we've been talking about and some of the employees' attitudes and employers' attitudes as well?
Yeah, a lot of great insights in this set of data, and the entire survey and all the results and the really making sense of the results. We've placed all that on our website at phoenix.edu/career-institute. I encourage folks to go check that out, whether you're an employer, hoping to kind of fix this issue, keep more of your people, or whether you're an employee and you're thinking about your career and career prospects.
Chief Academic Officer, University of Phoenix, Executive Director, University of Phoenix Career Institute, John Woods. We appreciate this conversation. Very informative this morning. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Well, it happens a lot. You switch jobs once or twice, and now you have money in multiple retirement plans. What do you do with that money? Consumer investigator Rachel DePompa talked with a financial coach about whether you should consolidate or just leave it alone.
Maybe you left a job and never rolled over your 401k to that new job, or your company got bought out and you have an old retirement account just sitting there. A lot of people have multiple retirement accounts these days, and there are several different choices that you can make. Cherry Dale, a financial coach with the Virginia Credit Union, says you could just do nothing, leave the money in the old account and let it grow. You could roll that money from your previous plan into your new 401k. If your new company doesn't have a 401k, you could open a Roth IRA and roll it into that.
So that's an individual retirement account that you do not need an employer to have that type of retirement account.
If you do any of these options, Dale says you need to consider the fees for these plans, and you need to know your comfort level in managing an account like this.
You've got to just make sure if you've got multiple retirement accounts that you are taking care of everything and that you are keeping things like your beneficiaries up to date, contact information up to date as well.
If you get remarried or you have kids, any major life event, you want to look up your accounts and update your beneficiaries. Now, there are pros and cons to everything, so if you feel like you need a little help in decisions like this, you could also contact a financial advisor. With This Watch in Your Wallet, I'm Rachel DePompa.
All right, did you see outside yet? Look at that. Look at that beautiful picture of downtown Memphis. It is gorgeous out there. Another shot from our Midtown High Five camera as we can see downtown Memphis off in the distance. Another gorgeous day. Showers are coming later tonight. Also, Blackberry winter. That is coming this weekend. That means you're in spring and it's going to be much colder in spring, and that's a big dip in temperatures. Let's have meteorologist Spencer Denton kind of spell it out for us.
Hey, I'm Action News 5 meteorologist Spencer Denton. As we go through the day, we're going to see temperatures topping out the low to mid 80s, partly cloudy, but mostly cloudy. By evening, we'll see a south wind at about 10 to 20 miles per hour. Check out these wind gusts. Could see those up toward 30 miles per hour this afternoon, so certainly a windy day ahead. Then tonight, rain and storms, heavy rain at times, 60 degrees for a low. Severe threat looks very low with this system, but we're going to see a big amount of rain as it moves in. Here's what to expect, though. This front is going to be the reason for scattered showers and storms to continue all the way through tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night. Most of this moves out and cooler air arrives across the Mid-South as we go into the weekend. So we're looking at a big cool down behind this system. But ahead of it, we could see a few strong storms again. It's a very low severe risk right now, at least a 1 or a 2 out of 5. Could see a little bit of high wind or hail in parts of eastern Arkansas. I think most storms it's just going to be heavy rain. Let's talk about the timing in Futurecast. As we go through the days, see clouds, we'll see those moving in as we go through the afternoon and evening hours. And then here comes the rain by tonight, 8 to 10 p.m., continuing off and on, wet ride to work and school tomorrow. And then look at this, that rain continues to redevelop along that front as we go through the afternoon. So very wet conditions for your Friday, but then it all moves out just in time for Friday night and for the weekend. Temperatures quickly fall into the 40s and 50s. Check out how much rain is going to fall with this system, 1 to 2 inches in most areas of the Mid-South. So big soaking for through Friday night. And then as we go into the weekend, you want to keep that Action News 5 First Alert weather app handy because it will be tracking temperatures in the 40s for lows Saturday and Sunday night, highs in the 60s. We have rain chances returning by the middle of next week.
All right, let's talk about the Ansdale Mansion, right? Ansdale. Snowden Grove Mansion on Lamar near Central will go up for sale at noon today. You can attend it in person or online. People in the neighborhood are concerned that a developer is going to buy the 7-acre property, tear down the 5-story mansion that was built in 1855. But current owner Ken Robeson says he believes the property will be purchased by someone that will preserve the home. The owner has yet to name his price.
I haven't made that number up yet, but I can tell you that it will sell on Thursday. It's going to bring what it's going to bring.
Okay, we'll have coverage of the outcome of today's auction on the Annisdale Snowden Mansion tonight on Action News 5 at 5. We talked about this yesterday on the Action News 5 digital desk. The University of Memphis athletes, TDOT, really did their best to team up with the Blue and Gray Cleanup Day, University of Memphis. Yep, they teamed up with that annual event. Tennessee shells out, get this, $23 million a year just to pick up litter. Some of those people who participated said they're happy to be a part of the initiative.
People really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. I'm sure people who aren't even student athletes really appreciate their campus being clean, their area being clean.
No question about it. It is an annual event that's been going on for a long, long time. All right, let's talk about hair loss for a minute, because there are more than 80 million Americans dealing with hair loss. By the age of 30, 25% will be men. 12% will be women. Genetics, the most common cause of hair loss in men and women, but there are other factors that can shed your locks. Take a look.
Why are you tapping my hair?
No matter how creative you are, it's hard to cover up your bald spots.
Smooth.
So what's causing it to happen? The first culprit, soda. One study in men showed that those who drank soda experienced a 57% greater chance of hair loss than those who did not. High sugar intake is known to cause weight gain and increase the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Both are linked to hair loss. Still shedding? You're probably stressed. According to Penn Medicine, when a person experiences stress, the body produces the hormone cortisol. Elevated levels can disrupt the normal hair growth cycle, leading to hair loss. And are you getting enough vitamins? Lack of biotin, zinc, and iron can lead accelerated hair loss. And even a severe accident, surgery, and burns can also shock the hair follicles and cause up to 75% of your hair to fall out, sometimes several months after the fact. The bottom line, if your locks are less than what they used to be, check in with your doctor to find out the root of the problem.
All right, Africa in April, the annual event's going to be at Robert Church Park. And it's happening now through this weekend. Taylor Tucker has more.
But whatever we needed to do, we're going to make sure that this is going to be a success.
It's lasted this long because it has a purpose, a mission, objective, and we have a culture that people can embrace.
For 36 years, the AC family, founders of the Africa in April Festival, have showcased a little piece of Africa in Memphis.
And there are a lot of great things coming out of Africa, or other than that's the hunger and the poverty. It's the cradle of civilization. Everything started in Africa.
The 4-day event takes place on Bill Street and at Robert Church Park. Visitors can enjoy authentic food, explore exhibits, visit health and wellness stations and local vendors, plus entertainment. Each year, the festival honors an African country. This year's country, Rwanda.
So we thought we'd highlight Rwanda and celebrate it through the windows of the arts, the music, the dance, and their natural symbol is that gorilla. We want people to learn about all of the continents in Africa, but Rwanda is one that we selected out of the few choices we had to make.
4 days of highlighting African culture with a different theme every day. Organizers say one of the best things about this event is that it's designed to make every visitor feel welcomed.
Memphis to Africa and Africa back to Memphis, and they have done that. That's why we're so connected internationally, well as nationally, locally and regionally.
In Memphis, Taylor Tucker, Action News 5.
Hey, I'm Action News 5 meteorologist Spencer Denton. As we go through the day, we're going to see temperatures topping out the low to mid 80s, partly cloudy, but mostly cloudy. By evening, we'll see a south wind at about 10 to 20 miles per hour. Check out these wind gusts. Could see those up toward 30 miles per hour this afternoon, so certainly a windy day ahead. Then tonight, rain and storms, heavy rain at times, 60 degrees for a low. Severe threat looks very low with this system, but we're going to see a big amount of rain as it moves in. Here's what to expect, though. though, this front is going to be the reason for scattered showers and storms to continue all the way through tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night. Most of this moves out and cooler air arrives across the Mid-South as we go into the weekend. So we're looking at a big cool down behind this system. But ahead of it, we could see a few strong storms again. It's a very low severe risk right now, at least a 1 or a 2 out of 5. Could see a little bit of high wind or hail in parts of eastern Arkansas. I think most storms it's just going to be heavy rain. Let's talk about the timing in Futurecast as we go through the days. See clouds, we'll see those moving in as we go through the afternoon and evening hours. And then here comes the rain by tonight, 8 to 10 p.m., continuing off and on, wet ride to work and school tomorrow. And then look at this, that rain continues to redevelop along that front as we go through the afternoon. So very wet conditions for your Friday, but then it all moves out just in time for Friday night and for the weekend. Temperatures quickly fall into the 40s and 50s. Check out how much rain is going to fall with this system, 1 to 2 inches in most areas of the Mid-South. So big soaking for through Friday night. And then as we go into the weekend, you want to keep that Action News 5 First Alert weather app handy because it will be tracking temperatures in the 40s for lows Saturday and Sunday night, highs in the 60s. We have rain chances returning by the middle of next week.
Okay, Earth Day is this Saturday. It's April 22nd, more than 50 years of Earth Day. Can you believe it? Well, let's talk about Earth Day because we all want cleaner air and cleaner water. The issue and where many people differ is how do we get there? Let's bring in Daphne Moore. She is a communications director for the Walton Family Foundation. She joins us on the digital desk. Good morning, Daphne. Tell me about how we get cleaner air and cleaner water.
Hi, good morning, and thank you for having me. At the foundation, we believe that as Americans, we are experiencing climate change largely through water, as you mentioned. And, you know, that takes many different forms. We are seeing droughts and fires in the West, flooding in the middle of the country, sea level rise along our coast, and I think everywhere severe weather. And so it's really bringing it home, and we're seeing the impacts in our own backyard. One of the things that we are doing, a step that we are taking, is really trying to help provide more information to local communities, not only about the impacts, but also about potential solutions. And we just finished up a poll with Morning Consult that really looked at expectations that Americans have about good fact-based journalism on climate change. Again, not just the impacts, which can be overwhelming, but also solutions. And we found that about 3 in 5 Americans are really looking to news organizations for the information. And there's a challenge. News organizations are being asked to do a lot more with a lot less. And so that's why foundations like ours are providing philanthropic support that not only helps create the capacity for this type of information, but also resources and training, because these are complex topics and it takes talent to really break it down to understand the local impacts.
Daphne, I couldn't agree with you more. These are complex topics and complex solutions as a result to some of the issues here. You know, I looked at a Pew Research poll that came out yesterday, and climate change is such a divisive issue. You know, Democrats look at it completely different than Republicans. It's very much a partisan divide. And then the other issue that came out of Pew was that 37% of Americans say climate change is not a top priority or is a top priority. That means other people are looking at economy and healthcare costs. How do we bridge the gap? How do we get people together to all agree on some of those issues that I initially brought up, which is clean air and clean water, because everyone can agree with that, right?
Exactly. We all need water. And that is why we focus specifically on water at the foundation, because as humans, we need it, but also our economies need it. And we believe that nature and people can thrive together, particularly when we're looking for creative and innovative solutions, people that are being bold in their belief that there is reason to have hope and that we can make a difference in local communities. One example that I love that we've supported is along the Mississippi River, where we have seen, you know, the the nutrients that are coming downstream, but also the land loss along the coast and efforts that are allowing the river to flow the way it was originally designed to do, and taking, the nutrients and sediment, our fancy way of just saying dirt, and allowing the river to actually rebuild land, which is of great benefit not only to nature, but also to the communities that live along the coast and are impacted by land loss.
So we have Saturday, we have Earth Day, a big event to really kind of focus on what we can do to make our environment, to make our planet safer and better, and maybe just kind of get towards that goal of better water, better air, cleaner renewable energy out there. Is there anything that the Walton Family Foundation is doing to maybe kind of just recommend people do on this Earth Day on Saturday?
I mean, I think one of the most important things that we all can do is become informed and look for good sources of fact-based information that go beyond the impacts and just the overwhelming nature of the challenge, but that also talk about solutions in our local communities, that we can come together and, like you mentioned, across lines of difference, because we all care about where we live. We care about the future for our children, and having water and air are essential not only to the planet, but to us as people and to communities and economies.
Where can people go to get some more information?
Yeah, I certainly local news organizations, but I'd also want to recommend our website, which is thewaltonfamilyfoundation.org. Some great stories about what people are doing in local communities.
Okay, Daphne Moore, Communications Director with the Walton Family Foundation. Appreciate your time, Daphne. Thanks very much. I want to show you right now, the American Humane Group has been on the ground in the Memphis area for the past week due to the overwhelming volume of animals that have been displaced after the storms hit March 31st. The DeSoto County Animal Shelter has called in American Humane for emergency assistance. The shelter has been operating at 200% of the capacity due to the influx of animals. So American Humane arrived to help the shelter operate at emergency capacity, setting up temporary housing, crates, kennels, and pens to accommodate some of the animals there. And for the past week, American Humane has helped care for approximately 110 animals who have been either injured, as I mentioned, displaced, or separated from their owners during the storm. American Humane has the team on the ground that's provided a number of important services there. I want to bring in right now the president and CEO of American Humane, Robert Ganser. She is joining us on the digital desk right now to talk more about what the organization is doing in Tipton County in West Tennessee to help some of the animals. Robin, good morning for joining. Thank you for joining us this morning. Tell me about the team that's on the ground here in the Memphis area, and have you been in contact with them, and what are they telling you?
Absolutely, Andrew. Thank you so much. First of all, our team's on the ground. We're proud to be in Tipton County today, actually providing emergency relief services for these animals in crisis. These animals have been terribly impacted by the storms. They're looking for their family members to be reunited. Some have been needed emergency medical care, which is very important. But frankly, they've all needed a lot of extra TLC, because storms, while they're scary for us humans, they're also quite scary for our animal friends.
You know, Robin, I know that the shelters, a lot of them across our area, are already at capacity because it's puppy and kitten season. How much has this storm really put a strain on some of those shelters? I know there was something that said it was 200% capacity right now in Tipton County alone.
Yes, and 200% capacity that's dangerous levels when you have that many animals that need time, attention, and care. And keep in mind, people locally have also been personally impacted. So you have shelter volunteers and employees who are also impacted by the storms. They have their own needs at home. So that's why American Humane sends our very best, our trained animal first responders to take over those duties to provide a relief valve for these shelters who are operating at such high capacity. Not only is it puppy and kitten season, but you also have animals who have been really lost in these storms who need to be reunited with their family members. So it is dangerous times, but our teams go on the ground. They provide emergency veterinarian care, which is important, a lot of animal enrichment. They've also been able to transport animals to other rescue groups and shelter groups across our great country, to especially those that were identified as stray animals, so they can find a forever loving home. Again, reducing the capacity needs on our local shelters who have been facing so much because of this season of storms.
How many team members are here on the ground? How long are they expected to be here? And we have thousands of people that watch us each and every morning on this streaming channel. Robin, what could they do to help the situation?
Absolutely. Well, we're also, our volunteers and our first responders are also providing pet food emergency drives too. So those who have been impacted by the storms are getting free pet food, free supplies, which is a very important part of our work. So for those listening and watching on today's show, importantly, you can visit AmericanHumane.org to provide for emergency relief funding for our incredible volunteers and staff on the ground. You can also donate at Tipton County Animal Shelter to provide for emergency food and supplies. And, you know, if you're interested, if your heart is open to becoming one of our emergency first responders, sign up for one of our training courses so you can be trained in being one of our humane heroes who go actually out and deploy in times of natural disasters and provide this emergency care. It's an incredible program for those of us who love animals. We need more volunteers who can go at a moment's notice to help our communities and neighbors in crisis.
For all those responsible pet owners out there, what can they do to kind of prepare for these type of things? I know that they're trying to figure out, okay, what can I do so that if there is another storm, God forbid, that they can, you know, be just prepared for anything?
Well, you know, we can count on there being another storm. We're just beginning the season of storms. And I'm here today from my home in Florida. We're gearing up always for the season of storms. What you need to prepare for today, and do not delay, we should all have our pet emergency preparation kit. And in that, we should have a mobile crate or carrier for our animals, big enough for them to stand up and turn around. You need to make sure you have 2 weeks of pet food and supplies, their medication on hand. You always need to make sure your pet has a secure collar with ID tags, and importantly, make sure you have your veterinarian records with you. I always tell all pet parents, never, ever, ever evacuate your home without your pet. Take them with you. They are part of our families, and we never want them to be separated, particularly in a time of crisis. But your pet disaster preparation kit is needed today. Be prepared with that so you can run out with a moment's notice with food, water, medical supplies, photos of your current pet, ID tags, and the like.
There's a lot that we have mentioned here, Robin. Where can people go to get some more information, just some bullet points of what they can do?
Visit AmericanHumane.org. We always keep our blogs up to date on what pet parents can and should be doing in terms of the season of storms. So do visit AmericanHumane.org and stay in touch. And also be on the lookout for American Humane trucks. Our volunteers and our rescue trailers were on the ground all season long, particularly in the season of storms. Wave at them, give them your support as they go by to help all of our communities in crisis. They really are the humane heroes this very day.
President and CEO of American Humane, Robert Ganzert, we really appreciate you breaking down some of the facts and figures, safety checklists for pet owners out there, and what people can do to just prepare for any kind of emergency. And thank you so much for what your organization is doing in the Memphis area right now with some of those displaced pets. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Cyber threats, they can be catastrophic for so many businesses and for individuals, causing disruption in essential services and breaches of national security secrets. So what are the cyber threats and what can we do about them? Let's talk to our Senior Vice President here for Cyberspace and National Security Policy at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Chris Roberti, for insights on how to combat cyber threat issues. Good morning, Chris. How are you?
Good morning, Andrew. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you being here. What do businesses and individuals really need to know about the current cybersecurity threats? We hear all about all kinds of threats, and they evolve over time. What do we know about the latest threats?
Well, we know that these threats are significant, that they are pervasive, and that the people perpetrating them are very, very sophisticated. What people and companies need to know is that anonymity is not a defense. Companies large and small can all be victims of significant cyber attacks. And so once you recognize that there's a problem out there and you could be a potential target, you could take some steps to try and make yourself a harder target to prevent yourself from being victimized.
What are the most persistent cyber threats for businesses and individuals? You know, we hear all kinds of different ones, phishing emails and texts and robocalls, that sort of thing. What do you see as the most persistent cyber threats out there?
Sure. So those things that you mentioned are very common vectors on how an attack can be perpetrated or initiated. But in terms of the type of attack, we're seeing ransomware, which is, I'm sure many people are familiar with that. There's been lots of discussion about ransomware attacks over the last couple of years. What ransomware is a cyber attack coupled with a demand for payment. And often what the actors will do is encrypt a company's files and then threaten to keep them encrypted, so preventing the company from getting access to them unless and until the company makes a payment to these criminals, which can be very debilitating. The average downtime for ransomware attacks is about 3 weeks, and the average time it takes to recover is over 280 days. So many companies, small companies particularly, can be really impacted by this. The second attack we'll talk about, or type of cyber attack, is what's called a business email compromise, where attackers make their way onto a company's systems, observe how the company operates, and then create or generate a fraudulent payment request to a vendor or other entity, such that the company ends up paying out this fraudulent claim and doesn't even realize it until later. So those are both very common threats, but we can't put aside also cyber threats that are cyber attacks that are targeting stealing data, stealing intellectual property for espionage purposes, or even destructive purposes. So there's a range of threats out there.
It sounds like it. I mean, it just sounds awful. Give us some of the best defense tips and suggestions.
Sure. Yeah, I don't want to be all doom and gloom. So there are things that individuals and companies can do to protect themselves and really limit the likelihood that you'll be victimized. So the first, as I said before, is recognize that there's a problem, that being small or anonymous is not a defense. Second thing you can do is ensure that you are enabling multi-factor authentication. So it's not just a password, but a password plus another thing that would cuts down significantly on successful cyber attacks. Another thing companies can do is back up their data and encrypt it. They can be they should be downloading and patching their systems and updating their systems regularly. And they should be training their employees to avoid those kinds of emails that you mentioned earlier. something like 87% of successful cyber attacks come through those types of spear phishing attacks or attempts. So if companies and if employees can figure out how to detect these things and avoid them, that goes a long way. And then the last thing I'll mention is they should be building relationships with their local FBI field office or Secret Service field office or cybersecurity and infrastructure security agency official from the Department of Homeland Security.
Our parent company, Gray TV, seems to always send us about every month or so, every few weeks, different security training, different updates on what to watch out for and what to find suspicious in order to guard against some of these threats. What are other people doing on a local level and on a national level to really kind of protect us from these threats?
Andrew, that's great to hear that your parent company is doing that, because that is really important. Because if people have it in the top of mind that threats can come to anybody within an organization, that really helps. That builds a collective defense that we all need. And then so going out from individual companies, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce plays an important role as connective tissue between the government and the private sector on cyber policy issues, whether that be pushing out information or influencing legislation. We play an important role there. At the federal government level, there are very dedicated professionals working to stop cyber criminals, to go after them on the law enforcement side, also to work with the private sector, which there's also has very sophisticated capabilities to defend networks and ensure that cyber attacks are not successful, and then also on remediation side. So there is we call it government and private sector operational collaboration, which is really important and critical because neither side can do it alone. And this translates all the way down to the state and local level as well.
People watching right now might want to look more at some of the resources and some of the tips, suggestions, and ways to stay safe. Do you have any resources for some of our viewers, Chris?
Sure. Yeah, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, we've got a lot of stuff on our website. You can go to uschamber.com/security. There's a link for cybersecurity. Also, the Department of Homeland Security has some great resources at CISA.gov. That's CISA.gov. And then the FBI as well, through their Internet Crimes Complaint Center, IC3.gov. There's lots of resources out there. Click away. That'll help people figure out how to make themselves a tougher target, but also what to do if they find themselves victimized.
Okay, Senior Vice President for Cyberspace and National Security Policy, U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Chris Roberti. Thanks so much for your insight. We appreciate it very much.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Well, from cybersecurity to physical security at Liberty Stadium. Yes, we are talking about security there. Brand new security system. Have you been to the Liberty Bowl lately? Also, of course, known as Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium. There are some updates that you will see the next time you go there, and it's pretty intricate. I was there at the Memphis Showboats game over the weekend on Saturday, and I saw some of it firsthand. Let's bring in the CEO and physical security expert at Extract One Technologies. That's the company behind security technology at the Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium. Peter Evans joining us now on the digital desk. Peter, good morning. Tell us about this new security system that's at Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium.
Well, good morning, Andrew, and thank you very much for having me on the broadcast this morning. It's great to see you. What Liberty Bank Stadium has done is, they've been proactive in their approach to think about how we enhance the patron experience while increasing security overall for the fans. As we all know, we live in uncertain times right now. We hear about weapons threat on almost a daily basis, which is a concern for society overall. And the challenge is a lot of these venues are looking to enhance their security. But as we all know, security and the patron experience can often be in conflict with each other. You know, the more security you put in, the longer the lines are, for example, at a venue like Liberty Bank Stadium. And so what we have developed is a solution that replaces the old walk-through metal detectors, which were built 40 or 50 years ago for our penitentiary systems. And what using advanced technology, advanced sensors, and artificial intelligence software, an individual can walk through. And if they're only carrying their watch, their wallet, their keys, they don't have to divest those things, and because those would alert on a metal detector. They just can walk on in, just like you're walking down the sidewalk. And what we will alert on is weapons, knives, and guns. So we have developed a weapons detection solution, not a metal detection solution. And we're using the same sort of digital innovation that, you know, for example, has changed the way that we do banking, retail, education, and in fact, the ability for you and I to have this conversation remotely. So digital technologies is an answer to creating this, removing this conflict between experience and between increased safety. And the world we live in today, that's really, I think, something that people are appreciating.
So, Peter, we have thousands of people that join us here on the Digital Desk each and every morning. I'm sure many of them went to the Memphis Showboats game over the weekend. What can you tell us to people who are not familiar with this technology the next time they go to Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium? What can they expect as opposed to some of the old security features?
Well, what we hope that people experience is the ability to, you know, walk right in at a much faster pace. People no longer have to take their watch, their wallet, their cell phone, their keys off and put them all in a bucket, which is highly invasive and annoying. You just want to have a great experience. You just want to go to the game. So instead of standing in a long line to wait to go in, typically people just walk right through our system. And only if they have something that's potentially suspicious will they alert and be screened. So in general, instead of 4 or 5 people per minute getting into a, going through a walk-through metal detector, now about 40, 50 people a minute can go through a system like ours. So consequently, people just walk right in. They get right into the venue much faster and not having to stand in long, long lines. Now, like any new venue, as we understand the patron flow and the things, we'll fine tune and improve week after week after week until we've got this really dialed in and people can just have that great experience going into the venue.
So let me ask you this, because I understand that it's going to be in 2 different phases that this security system will be deployed. And I also am curious how you're going to be training some of the people who work at the stadium there, because when I went this weekend, I felt like I knew that there was something different. I saw those pillars that we're seeing on this video, but I wasn't necessarily sure that the people who worked at the stadium were completely trained on some of the new features that you're mentioning.
Well, it's a great question. So a couple of thoughts. First, you asked about the 2 phases. The USFL was the first trigger for Liberty Bank Stadium to put the technology in, and we wanted to make sure we had the first phase in place to address all of the needs of the USFL and the Memphis Showboats for the next 10 weeks or so. And then post that, the second phase will be expanding the coverage to the rest of the venue to host future Memphis Tiger games and any other activity that occurs at the venue when it's much more full. And so we'll add another layer of technology for more of the gates. In terms of training and things, like any new technology, you know, probably the first time you used your smartphone, Andrew, you might have made a few mistakes because it was new. It was different than your flip phone. And so with every week, we go through the training with the security staff and we get them more and more familiar on how to run and operate the system in a very smooth manner. And so it just takes a few weeks of transition time and experience. The same thing applies for the fans. We still have fans walking up, holding their cell phones in their hands and wondering where they put them in a bucket. And we have to train the fans over time to say, this is different. Just walk right in and enjoy the experience.
Excellent. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Peter, before we let you go?
Well, I have to tip my hat and applaud the mayor of the city of Memphis. Very proactive, forward thinking about creating an environment that's safe for all fans while increasing their security and increasing their experience. I think it's very proactive for him to lean into things like this and actually create a much better environment. So we're very pleased to be working with the city, working with Oakview Group, and of course with the stadium itself to deliver this next set of innovation. And we'll be looking to do more and more of this across Memphis.
Is there a place where fans maybe can learn more about it so that they can be prepared the next time they enter the stadium?
Absolutely. Obviously, our website is a great place to go, www.extract1.com. And there's all sorts of videos there, all sorts of information. And for whether it's the fans looking for more information, whether it's other businesses looking for more information, we welcome people calling us and sharing the how we can change the world for the better for all of us.
Okay, Peter Evans, CEO, physical security expert at Extract One Technologies. Thanks for your time. Very informative this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrew. Looking forward to talking to you more and perhaps seeing you at a game in the future.
That'd be great, Peter. I look forward to it as well. Thank you. All right, let's talk about the Grizzlies. Speaking of games, oh my gosh, the Grizzlies game. Game 2. Boy, did they take it to Memphis. What are we looking at this for? That was game 1, I think. This is game 2. Much better, okay, because that preview was all about the Lakers winning. This one is about big Memphis energy, big Grizz energy, because that was on display last night. They won 103-93. Xavier Tillman was amazing. He had 22 points, 13 boards, and there were 6 Grizzlies in double figures last night. It was fantastic. It started with Jaren Jackson Jr. getting the Defensive Player of the Year trophy before the game. And wow, Tyus delivered, as you can see there, backup for Ja, who did not play last night. We have the Grizzlies post-game interviews after the game here. I want to play that for you. You're going to love to hear some of the Grizzlies players and coaches after last night's game. Take a look.
Hey, Coach Jenkins, defensively, was that the effort you were looking for in the first game that got you the lead and momentum that you needed?
Yeah, I mean, great effort by our guys. You know, the urgency, the discipline to execute our defensive game plan, obviously setting a tone in that first quarter, 19-point quarter. When in the first 2 quarters, obviously you knew they were going to go on a run. I told the guys afterwards, like, when we lock into our game plan, you know, we're going to probably get the results that we want. But when we make, you know, minor mistakes here or there, lack of communication, lack of discipline or something in rotations, they're really good. They make us pay, and they did at times. So we got to correct that moving forward, but I thought there was tons of great things. We had to change up some matchups. We try to simplify some of our adjustment packages so our guys could go out there and just play hard, and they did a great job tonight. So great win, but we got to continue to get better as the series goes on.
Taylor, you talked all year about how you guys are going to have to fight through adversity to get to where you ought to. No Ja tonight, down 1-0. Do you feel like this game was a prime example of that?
Yeah, I mean, a great example. I mean, so many different guys stepping up. Obviously, I thought Tyus was great. We had 6 guys with 2+ assists. Obviously, him with 8 assists. You know, I mean, both teams couldn't really buy a shot. I mean, low 40s, both teams. But for our guys to come out there and play together, try to move the ball, I thought there was great effort on both sides of the floor, and I talked about it before the game. Just, you know, we needed some guys off our bench to step up, and I thought, you know, great efforts from all of our bench guys. You know, Luke knocking down shots, D-Rod coming and playing some great defense, knocking down shots, Jitty with, you know, some big-time blocks, just, you know, continuing to impact the game in different ways. This is just a great example, and then obviously X, you got to tip your cap to him, what he did for us defensively, offensively. He was huge, and he's been doing that all season, but this is an example of what the Grizzlies need when, you know, guys out.
Yeah, on X, I mean, you've repeated this a few times, but I guess what are the feelings right now after a performance like this, given all that he's done this season, G League, all of this, and to be in this spot again where we're talking about him again after playing so well?
I think it's the true sign of a winner. It's a true sign of a pro, and that's why we love X, a guy that always stays ready. He wants to impact winning and whatever his role is going to be. Comes out, you know, in the second half of the regular season, makes a tremendous impact. Does it tonight, you know, in the biggest game of the season for us. But, you know, true testament to him, keeping his body ready, his mind ready. But, you know, for him, he's just like, let me just get ready for the next challenge the next day. Obviously, you know, this is a big win for us. You know, great performance from him, other guys as well. But, you know, no highs, no lows. We just got to keep focusing ahead, and that's what he's been a prime example of, a guy that when he's played well, when he's gotten his opportunities, he's just focused on the next challenge ahead.
Taylor, I mean, just looking at how you defended Anthony Davis, it just looked like he couldn't get comfortable. How were you able to do that?
Just with activity, you know, we had a couple different guys on him. You know, they used him in pick and roll to get into his post situations, early post-ups as well. It's just trying to play with smart activity. Obviously, you know, trying to limit, you know, their ability to draw fouls, you know, work for the post position. Who's going to win that battle early in possessions is big, and then just not giving him any angles to really be a threat. You know, he's a hell of a player. It's going to be a tough test, but, you know, we know they're going to try to feature him in a lot of different ways. It's off-ball screens, it's post ISOs, it's pick and rolls into posts. So I thought our guys did a great job knowing the different situations they like to feature them in, and we just did it with just smart activity.
I promised I was going to ask about how you defended Anthony, but since that was just asked, what happened with Ja?
So all the way up, did all the testing, still battling some soreness and a little pain. It's just a collective decision. We all decided that, obviously he's a warrior. He wants to be out there, would do anything to be out there. But we just felt like, hey, just given all the testing results that, given this game and just with a couple more days in between, we're hopeful that, with the progress he's making the last couple of days, he'll be back sooner rather than later. Can't guarantee when that's going to be, but it was just one of those things that we just couldn't, pull it to have him in tonight. But, hopefully over the next couple of days, there's more significant improvement.
Taylor, just the Lakers not only just 7 3-pointers made, but also they had 26 attempted. What was the difference in the defensive execution tonight as opposed to game one?
Yeah, just better awareness of their ball movement. We watched after game one, their spacing and how, again, I just talked about, the discipline and our rotations, just our when we just take a misstep, they find, their shooters. I thought in game one, James did a great job of it. Davis did a great job of it. Russell coming off his pick and rolls and finding guys, just our urgency to get to the three-point line and just be in the right spot initially. So they didn't have these windows of opportunity. We just try to, limit those as much as possible. So we'll see what the adjustments are, going into game three. We'll watch the film and see, where we did well and where we didn't do well. But it was just a matter of just being really disciplined on the backside, knowing that they try to thrive in setting flares and cuts and letting those guys be, facilitators early before they go score.
Taylor, was John Conchar rim protecting against Anthony Davis part of the game plan tonight?
Jitty doing Jitty things. That was huge. Obviously, I think AD's getting deep post catches, and we talked about how our weak side rotations had to be there because that was an emphasis going the series when he's trying to get deep, and he's hurt us in the past. And then just Jitty, comes out of the right spot to make a huge play, makes it twice. That's just really impressive. It's just guys making winning plays. They get your opportunity. He didn't play in game one, but he stayed ready to go out there and again just do Jitty things, and he makes defensive plays, winning plays. Made a huge impact in the minutes that he had tonight.
To do this without Ja, I know you obviously did it in the Golden State series last year, won a home game, but I don't know. I'm curious what the word would be. Was it reassuring to see these guys rise up the way they did?
I don't know what the word is, but it's just a great description of the depth of our team, the resilience of our team. We've battled this, throughout the regular season the last 2 years, now 2 playoffs in a row. But the guys know what our DNA is. We compete together, and we just got to focus on getting better. And we had to get better from game one, set a different tone, have a different mentality. Whoever's in the lineup, what our expectations are. Great example of that, on the biggest stage in the biggest game, as I said. But now things are going to pivot. We got to go on the road, and we got to do everything that we just talked about from game one to game two 10 times better, knowing that we're going on the road.
Taylor, 2 of 5 at the free throw line and then ended up managing to match them at the line for the game. How key was it getting to the line there in the second half and being able to knock shots down? Yeah, big.
I thought we were doing a pretty decent job in the first half of, getting downhill. We just missed opportunities with our drive and kick. Obviously, AD, his presence, I think he had 5 blocks in the first half, the way they were collapsing. But we kept telling our guys, we still have to attack. We still have to have multiple paint touches, whether that's Dez, attacking downhill. It's JJ on, his perimeter drives. Whoever it was, we just had to continue making that an emphasis because that's where we thrive. Collapse the defense, then make the right reads. Was able to knock down some big threes. Obviously, Luke and D-Rod off the bench, both I think with 3 threes apiece. But just playing with force, even against their physical defense and having AD down there, we still have to make that the initial part of our offense.
Yeah, Tillman shot well from 3 as a rookie, and then obviously hit that huge one at Golden State in the play-in game. It sort of disappeared from his game the last 2 seasons. Is that hit one tonight? Is that something you talked about looking for with AD sort of sagging into the paint, or did that just sort of happen?
I think that just kind of evolved. He's been huge. Obviously he was amazing on the boards tonight. He's playing around in the dunker spot. He's playing in a lot of pick and rolls and the elbows for us. I think he caught another one out in the corner. I don't think he shot that one, but it's just kind of the product of him and reading the personnel out there with him. Is it JJ? Is it Santi? Is it JJ on a roll, Santi on a roll? We talk about respacing and not trying to clutter the paint. That one was a great example. I think the ball was coming from right to left, and we had an overload, and he knew if he cut, he was probably going to crowd the paint a little bit more, and obviously was ready to shoot. And he practices that all the time. He's practicing his three-point shot. I know it hasn't been a big focal point of his game because he's excelling in other areas, but he's always got to stay ready no matter what the space presents, and I was glad he shot with a lot of confidence.
Taylor, on a night like tonight when Jaren receives the Defensive Player of the Year award and, he's got 3 blocks, he's on the floor, he's leaving it all out there. How much of that is you and him having conversations about how much time he's going to play? Because he played the most minutes on the court.
Yeah, I mean, you see the impact he has, plus minus, the scoring, block shots, rebounds. We start changing up our pick and roll coverages. We need him out there. I talked to him, before the series, especially, with DB too, from a defensive standpoint, we need those guys out there to set a tone for us. Obviously a very special night, JJ getting recognized Defensive Player of the Year in front of the home crowd. What a great ovation for him. But as he said, I think when he even got the award, he was focused on Game 2. So I think after he got the award tonight, he was focused on Game 2. And obviously, those almost 40 minutes that he played tonight were crucial for us because we're going to need him to make a continued big impact no matter what his minutes are on both sides of the floor moving.
Tyus, when did you learn that you were going to be starting today? And, I know we've asked you in the past, how does it impact your preparation? But being that it was a playoff game and the number of minutes that you were going to have to play, did any of that factor into how you prepared for this game?
I prepared the same way I always do. Preparation doesn't change just because I've said it before. You never know what could happen. Never know which way the game's going to go. But I learned about an hour before the game, kind of when everyone else learned, and just ready to go, ready to lead the team. Nothing really changes from my standpoint. Just the minutes are increased, but just trying to lead the guys to a win. Just trying to be myself out there on the court, and we were able to get a win. So that's the most important thing.
Hey, Tyus, if you look at the box score, no one stood out. It was almost like a well-oiled machine. People was doing what they needed to do. I know it's a broken record, next man up mentality, but how can you go that smooth on the highest of stage?
Just trusting in our work. That's just our philosophy all year. It's just been kind of next man up mentality. We know it's a team effort, and just believing in one another. So just continue to believe in one another, continue to believe in each other, trusting our game plan, and living with the results.
Tyus, it doesn't appear it to us, but when you're starting for job in a playoff game, in your mind, do you have to change your style at all? Do you feel like you have to be more assertive or anything of that nature?
Not at all. Not at all. The game kind of dictates that. For me, I've always been, the type of player, point guard who just takes what the defense gives you. There's times to be aggressive, looking to score. There's times to try to facilitate a little more. But ultimately, again, just trying to be a leader, just trying to lead my guys to a win is ultimately the end goal, most important thing. Taking my shots when they're there, making the right reads, trying to get good quality possessions each and every time down the floor. And but yeah, no, the mindset doesn't change. Regardless if I'm playing 36 minutes or 6 minutes, gonna continue to approach the game the same way, try to approach it the right way, and my guys allow me to just be myself and lead.
Tyus, when X comes out, makes I think his first 6 shots in the first miss was there at the end of the first half, double, career high in the postseason. When he does that against those bigs, AD and LeBron, how much does that help out this team?
Huge. He was, X played great. He was big time tonight, and we needed that. And it's when he's playing like that, it brings a whole new dynamic to our team. And he owned the paint tonight, owned the glass, was extremely efficient, rolling to the hoop, running in transition, rim running, getting out, putting pressure on their defense, collapsing their defense. So we had driving lanes and things like that. And so, he was big time for us tonight and a big reason why we got the win.
Tyus, the Lakers scored 93 points, and they had 7 threes, but they also only shot 26. Just what did you notice about the difference in y'all's defensive execution tonight?
Just sticking to the game plan a little better. Our discipline was better, and our physicality was better. They weren't able to get to their spots as easy as they were in Game 1, and that was kind of the focus. So just continue to stay disciplined. Obviously, they got guys who are going to be able to get to their spots regardless. That's what they've done their whole career. But just trying to make it as difficult as possible on them, trying not to let them see any easy ones go in, and just making them work, for everything for the full 48.
Tyus, heading on the road now, not knowing if you're going to be starting for Game 3, but what are you guys going to try to carry from here, playing in this atmosphere on your home turf, to, obviously on the road where it hasn't always been easy during the regular season?
Yeah, we know we haven't been good on the road. We talked about it all year. Postseason's the new season, and we know the task at hand. We know what's in front of us, and we got to be ready to go. Game 3, we know they're not gonna, lay down. They're gonna, want to respond from Game 3 after this game, and we got to be ready to go. Talked about our discipline, both ends of the floor, trusting in each other, having the next guy's back on defense, and then offensively continue to trust our game plan on the offensive end of the floor, take our shots with confidence, and live with the results. Thank you, guys.
X, you had more points and rebounds in the first 5 minutes tonight than you did in Game 1, and then you just kept going from there. What made this such a big bounce-back game for you?
Just trying to assert myself. Watching the film of the first game, I didn't really assert myself. I was kind of going through the motions. The coach had mentioned it in a couple meetings we had about like the urgency that we need to play with. So I just felt like I need to turn that up and turn up my energy level and just be more assertive and more aggressive early on.
X, just big picture with all this, your journey just this season, Summer League, G League, rotation, out of the rotation, to kind of come here. Guarding Anthony Davis. And,
you couldn't write this, bro.
How does it feel?
It's humbling, bro. It's humbling. It like lets me know that like no matter what I'm going through, like it always pass. I just seen a video about it yesterday. Like kind of like life is like a wave. Like you on your wave, you're feeling good, and then it might crash. You might be down for a little bit, waiting for your next wave to come, but it'll come. That's just how life works. As long as you keep working and keep trusting everything that you've been putting in, it'll come to fruition. And it did. It's crazy though. I'll tell you that.
Hey, X, yesterday you had 2 quick fouls, and that seemed to take you out of your first half, and you got a little bit in the second half, but today you were more aggressive, yet you didn't pick those fouls up. So how did that help you to skyrocket up this game?
Yeah, it just allowed me to be on the floor more, not picking up those fouls just allows me to be more aggressive in the second and third and fourth quarter versus in the first game picking up those 2. I'm sort of tentative not to pick up another one in the first half and really have to sit on the bench. So once I was able to finish the first quarter without picking up those 2 fouls, I felt good throughout the rest of the game.
In scoring, as DeMichael mentioned, you're going up against AD and LeBron sometimes there in the paint, and you were kind of weaving in and out of there. What did you see on film that helped you find some of those spots to finish off some of those buckets?
They give me a lot of space. So it's my job to take up that space and to use my big frame to create contact and then just go from there. Trust my instincts, whatever I see, whatever I feel, just finish it out. And that allows me, you saw it today, kind of allowed me to get a lot of buckets that like look easy, but like just letting my instincts kind of just flow instead of not overthinking it. It helped me a lot.
X, so tonight AD was 4-14 from the field. Just what do you thought were the keys to the execution on kind of just slowing him down and not letting him have a big impact offensively?
Physicality, not giving him any easy ones. In that first game he had a lot of drop-offs, a lot of fast break dunks to where we're just like, okay, dude, you can't stop him once he's 2 feet in the paint and he's got the ball. So, just keeping him out the paint and being physical with it. So if he makes a shot, it's just a tougher shot. That's what we really, really try to hone in on, and especially not fouling him because he's a great free throw shooter. So locking in on those things for sure really, really helped us do that.
This different year, different situation, obviously, but in some ways tonight maybe a little indicative of last year's postseason, that game 2 against Minnesota. Were you able to draw anything from that initial experience, the breakout performance, in terms of imposing more assertiveness tonight on your part?
Yeah, it was kind of like the first game was kind of like a feel out. It was kind of like, all right, let's see how they're going to guard you. Let's see, the flow of the game and how you can be assertive. And then over these last 2 days, I think I watched the game at least like 4 times, just seeing, the same spots that I could be more aggressive at. And I just kind of let it flow. And after that, I was able to be aggressive today in those spots that I saw, and it just worked out.
I asked you yesterday about the prospect of your three-point shot being a factor in this series. You had one from the top of the key. You almost got one from the corner.
I should have shot it. Everybody was mad. I should have shot it just because, I work on it a lot. I just got to trust it and let it fly and let it go. But I should have shot it.
X, I hear with you when people, in NBA talk about your game, they say you play big. And I was talking to someone from Detroit the other day, former NBA player, and he was bragging on you. He's like, X plays big. What does that mean, when people say you play big?
I don't know. I don't know people.
All right, more perspective. Like they say, because you're 6'8", but you play bigger than 6'8". Like,
I mean, it's probably my ability to rebound with the best of them. And I credit that to my God-given length. I got a 7'2" wingspan. Shouts out to my mom and my dad. I got a 7'2" wingspan. I know how to use my body before the ball, hits the rim, so I have an advantage to get, offensive or defensive rebounds. But that's probably what they mean about me playing big, is just me being able to rebound, with the best of them.
Hey, I'm Action News 5 meteorologist Spencer Denton. As we go through the day, we're going to see temperatures topping out the low to mid 80s, partly cloudy, but mostly cloudy. By evening, we'll see a south wind at about 10 to 20 miles per hour. Check out these wind gusts. Could see those up toward 30 miles per hour this afternoon, so certainly a windy day ahead. Then tonight, rain and storms, heavy rain at times, 60 degrees for a low. Severe threat looks very low with this system, but we're going to see a big amount of rain as it moves in. Here's what to expect, though. This front is going to be the reason for scattered showers and storms to continue all the way through tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night. Most of this moves out and cooler air arrives across the Mid-South as we go into the weekend. So we're looking at a big cool down behind this system. But ahead of it, we could see a few strong storms again. It's a very low severe risk right now, at least a 1 or a 2 out of 5. Could see a little bit of high wind or hail in parts of eastern Arkansas. I think most storms, it's just going to be heavy rain. Let's talk about the timing in Futurecast. As we go through the days, see clouds, we'll see those moving in as we go through the afternoon and evening hours. And then here comes the rain by tonight, 8 to 10 p.m., continuing off and on, wet ride to work and school tomorrow. And then look at this, that rain continues to redevelop along that front as we go through the afternoon. So very wet conditions for your Friday, but then it all moves out just in time for Friday night and for the weekend. Temperatures quickly fall into the 40s and 50s. Check out how much rain is going to fall with this system, 1 to 2 inches in most areas of the Mid-South. So big soaking for through Friday night. And then as we go into the weekend, you want to keep that Action News 5 First Alert weather app handy, because it will be tracking temperatures in the 40s for lows Saturday and Sunday night, highs in the 60s. We have rain chances returning by the middle of next week.
Cyber threats, they can be catastrophic for so many businesses and for individuals, causing disruption in essential services and breaches of national security secrets. So what are the cyber threats, and what can we do about them? Let's talk to our Senior Vice President here for Cyberspace and National Security Policy at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Chris Roberti, for insights on how to combat cyber threat issues. Good morning, Chris. How are you?
Good morning, Andrew. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you being here. What do businesses and individuals really need to know about the current cybersecurity threats? We hear all about all kinds of threats, and they evolve over time. What do we know about the latest threats?
Well, we know that these threats are significant, that they are pervasive, and that the people perpetrating them are very, very sophisticated. What people and companies need to know is that anonymity is not a defense. Companies large and small can all be victims of significant cyber attacks. And so once you recognize that there's a problem out there and you could be a potential target, you could take some steps to try and make yourself a harder target to prevent yourself from being victimized.
What are the most persistent cyber threats for businesses and individuals? You know, we hear all kinds of different ones, phishing emails and texts and robocalls, that sort of thing. What do you see as the most persistent cyber threats out there?
Sure. So those things that you mentioned are very common vectors on how an attack can be perpetrated or initiated. But in terms of the type of attack, we're seeing ransomware, which is, I'm sure many people are familiar with that. There's been lots of discussion about ransomware attacks over the last couple of years. What ransomware is a cyber attack coupled with a demand for payment. And often what the actors will do is encrypt a company's files and then threaten to keep them encrypted, so preventing the company from getting access to them unless and until the company makes a payment to these criminals, which can be very debilitating. The average downtime for ransomware attacks is about 3 weeks, and the average time it takes to recover is over 280 days. So many companies, small companies particularly, can be really impacted by this. The second attack we'll talk about, or type of cyber attack, is what's called a business email compromise, where attackers make their way onto a company's systems, observe how the company operates, and then create or generate a fraudulent payment request to a vendor or other entity, such that the company ends up paying out this fraudulent claim and doesn't even realize it until later. So those are both very common threats, but we can't put aside also cyber threats that are cyber attacks that are targeting stealing data, stealing intellectual property for espionage purposes, or even destructive purposes. So there's a range of threats out there.
It sounds like it. I mean, it just sounds awful. Give us some of the best defense tips and suggestions.
Sure. Yeah, I don't want to be all doom and gloom. So there are things that individuals and companies can do to protect themselves and really limit the likelihood that you'll be victimized. So the first, as I said before, is recognize that there's a problem, that being small or anonymous is not a defense. Second thing you can do is ensure that you are enabling multi-factor authentication. So it's not just a password, but a password plus another thing that would cuts down significantly on successful cyber attacks. Another thing companies can do is back up their data and encrypt it. They can be they should be downloading and patching their systems and updating their systems regularly. And they should be training their employees to avoid those kinds of emails that you mentioned earlier. Something like 87% of successful cyber attacks come through those types of spear phishing attacks or attempts. So if companies and if employees can figure out how to detect these things and avoid them, that goes a long way. And then the last thing I'll mention is they should be building relationships with their local FBI field office or Secret Service field office or cybersecurity and infrastructure security agency official from the Department of Homeland Security.
Our parent company, Gray TV, seems to always send us about every month or so, every few weeks, different security training, different updates on what to watch out for and what to find suspicious in order to guard against some of these threats. What are other people doing on a local level and on a national level to really kind of protect us from these threats?
Andrew, that's great to hear that your parent company is doing that, because that is really important. Because if people have it in the top of mind that threats can come to anybody within an organization, that really helps. That builds a collective defense that we all need. And then so going out from individual companies, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce plays an important role as connective tissue between the government and the private sector on cyber policy issues, whether that be pushing out information or influencing legislation. We play an important role there. At the federal government level, there are very dedicated professionals working to stop cyber criminals, to go after them on the law enforcement side, also to work with the private sector, which there's also has very sophisticated capabilities to defend networks and ensure that cyber attacks are not successful, and then also on remediation side. So there is we call it government and private sector operational collaboration, which is really important and critical because neither side can do it alone. And this translates all the way down to the state and local level as well.
People watching right now might want to look more at some of the resources and some of the tips, suggestions, and ways to stay safe. Do you have any resources for some of our viewers, Chris?
Sure. Yeah, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, we've got a lot of stuff on our website. You can go to uschamber.com/security. There's a link for cybersecurity. Also, the Department of Homeland Security has some great resources at CISA.gov. That's CISA.gov. And then the FBI as well, through their Internet Crimes Complaint Center, IC3.gov. There's lots of resources out there, click away. That'll help people figure out how to make themselves a tougher target, but also what to do if they find themselves victimized.
Okay, Senior Vice President for Cyberspace and National Security Policy, U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Chris Roberti. Thanks so much for your insight. We appreciate it very much.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Amanda Hansen back here at the Action News 5 digital desk. And this morning we want to talk about shingles. A lot of times I think people believe that this happens in older people, but if you didn't know, it can happen in younger people too. And so joining us now to talk more about this is Dr. Cyrilyn Walters with Regional One Health. Good morning, doctor. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to be talking with you because I think this is such an interesting topic. And one reason why, my sister, she's in her early 30s, recently had the shingles. And she was like, I had no idea at this age that I could get that sort of thing. So I felt like this is such a great topic to talk about a little bit more. So I guess first off, let's just talk about what shingles is.
Okay, so shingles is actually what we refer to as herpes zoster. And so this is an infection that you can get from having a prior infection with chickenpox. It comes from the same virus. And so when you had chickenpox, that virus remained in your body, but it remained dormant or inactive. And for various reasons later in life, then you reactivate that virus and it causes shingles, which is a rash similar to chickenpox, but it's in one area of your body on one side that causes the same blistering, rash, and burning that you may have when you had chickenpox in the past.
Are there things that can trigger shingles in individuals, such as stress, something like that?
It's a theory that stress may induce shingles. One of the things that we do know is that shingles reactivate when your body's immune system is at its lowest. And that's why we tend to hear, you don't get shingles until you're older, because when you're a young child or when you're an older adult or past the age of 65, your immune system starts to weaken. And so now that we're seeing it in people that are under the age of 50, there is some concerns about, multifactorially, whether we have younger people that are sicker, And so they have some reduced immune system or other stressors that cause your immune system to be lower at that time, including COVID that we just went through the pandemic.
That's a good point with COVID. Who's most at risk, though? We've kind of touched on, a lot of times people see this in older people. Are those the ones that are most at risk?
So those and anyone who has a weakened immune system. So about 1 in 3 of us will get shingles in our lifetime. And the ones who tend to be the most at risk are people who are over 50. And that's why the vaccines are recommended for that age group. And then anyone that has any type of immunity or weakened immunity. So from various diseases, like say HIV, if that was uncontrolled, children that have, immune disorders, or even adults with cancers and things like that, that may have weakened immunity.
It makes sense. Thank goodness there's the chickenpox shot that's now available. They didn't have that when I was a kid, and I remember my mom would take me around kids that had the chickenpox so I would get it at a young age. So I guess let's talk about some of the signs, symptoms that people need to look out for and maybe would alert them that maybe this is what they have.
So the first thing that people tend to feel is like a burning, almost like an internal itch in an area of their body. It can be the trunk of your body. It can be on an arm, a leg, or a face. And so that's the first thing you started feeling without seeing the rash. About 5 to 7 days into that is when you start seeing kind of the fluid-filled rash that we come so comfortable with for chickenpox. And, of course, chickenpox is not as common. So there may be some people who've never actually seen the blistering rash, but it then blisters up in that same area, one side of your body, and over time, then that crusts over like you would have with a typical chickenpox. Some people may end up having fevers associated with it or abdominal pain, but the primary problem is the rash on one side of your body.
My sister, she immediately was she felt like it was that nerve pain. I mean, she said it was horrible. She ended up, she's not one that would just go into the emergency room. She ended up in the emergency room wanting to know what was going on. And then, of course, a few days later, that's when that rash appeared and it became evident that that's what it was. But at first it was kind of like, what is this? And she's a nurse, which is interesting enough. But I know we touched on this some, but younger people, why is it, you think, that more younger people are getting shingles like this? I know we mentioned the stress. Is that kind of, and just the weakened immune system, is that kind of really what it's all about?
There's a couple different theories. And actually, if you look at the data, it shows that, as time has been going on, younger people are having higher rates of shingles than people over 50. They're starting to plateau a little bit. One of the major thought process is that if you were born before 1980, just like you talked about with your mom, everyone kind of got shingles naturally, or chickenpox, naturally. And so that chickenpox immunity they're feeling may be a little stronger than the vaccines we're now getting. And so you have kind of younger persons who, don't remember getting chickenpox or may not have the vaccine early enough. And then that causes a weaker immunity than if you had chickenpox when you were for the older population. And so because of that, they feel that, it doesn't protect you as well. And so that reactivation is quicker. There's also some theories about the chickenpox vaccine that you used to get in the past was a live vaccine. And so that may have induced kind of that reactivation.
This is just so interesting to me, just because my sister was personally affected by this. Let's talk a little bit more about shingles itself. How long does it last? How contagious is it to pass along to other people?
Okay. So like we discussed, that burning, nerve pain, itching that you may feel, that usually is about the first 5 days. And around that time, you are not contagious. You aren't contagious until you have those blistering rashes that are starting to open. And so that's usually in that first 7 to 10 days is when you start seeing that blistering rash. Over time, that crusts over. So once it's crusted, again, you're no longer contagious. And overall, the whole exposure exposure can last for about 2 to 4 weeks in terms of getting the burn in, getting the rash, having the rash kind of clear up and everything resolve. It can take about 2 to 4 weeks. Unlike chickenpox, it is only contagious when you touch the fluid from the blister and rash. So for most people, they can just cover up that rash and make sure that they wash their hands pretty well and not interact with it. And in that situation, you won't be contagious to others.
So does it help to get shingles early?
It does not, because there is an opportunity that you can get it a second time. Most people only get it once in their lifetime, but conceivably you get it earlier, then you have that chance of, as you get older and your immunity weakens again, to be able to get it a second time.
I was going to ask you, is it something that you can get again? And so you answered that question for me, which, I hope I don't end up with it at some point. But after experiencing what happened with my sister, I'm just like, wow. What about treatment? Does treatment depend? Does it vary from person to person on what works to help with either the nerve pain, the rash? How is it treated?
So when you do know or have, just like your sister, have a inkling that, there's a rash or something is going on, you want to get treated with antiviral medication. So you have acyclovir or valacyclovir. Those are antivirals that you want to give within the first 48 or 72 hours. And that reduces not only the duration of the rash and the symptoms, but it reduces your chance of having what we call post-herpetic neuralgia, which is a complication that you can get after shingles, where that burning and that pain in that area actually never goes away.
I've heard about that. I've actually done stories with people that have it's just debilitating and awful. What about the vaccine? We've talked about the vaccine some. Who should get it? When should they get it? Tell us more.
So for the shingles vaccine, it's recommended for patients or persons over the age of 50, and it's a 2-shot vaccine. Now, if you have a weakened immune system, or say someone that has, cancer, and we know that's going on, then your provider, your physician can order for you to get the vaccine earlier than the age of 50. It's available, however, it's an expensive vaccine. So if you want to go based on recommendations, then those would be the persons that are more likely to have that shingles is age 50 and above.
With more younger people seeing shingles, do you think eventually that might be altered a little bit on the age?
It could be, because initially it was actually 65 and above, and so they reduced it to 50. And like we talked about, the data is showing that patients or persons over 65 and 70, the number of persons getting shingles have kind of plateaued, so it's not getting any higher. But the numbers that are going up are mostly in the people in the 40 to 50 range, and of course the younger ones are starting to go up. So I think if that trend continues, you might see the recommendation continue to drop.
Well, Dr. Walters, this interview has been so interesting to me. Is there anything else that you want to mention before we let you go?
In addition to getting the shingles vaccine, which is for over 50, get your chickenpox vaccine. So that is one of the things that will help kind of reduce the chances of you having that reactivation. So they kind of go hand in hand, since they're the same virus. It's just at different presentations.
Well, good deal. Well, Dr. Walters, I really appreciate your time, and thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, take a look at the latest edition of the Commercial Appeal there. This is this month's Memphis Magazine. I'm sorry, Commercial Appeal. I mean Memphis Magazine. What am I talking about? Memphis Magazine, is it Friday yet? Almost. This is it, FedEx at 50, because it turns 50 on Monday. And there is a picture of President and CEO Raj Subramaniam, yes. And there is an exclusive interview with Raj to talk all things FedEx as it turns 50 on Monday. The author of that article, John W. Sparks, joining us right now on the Action News 5 digital desk. And John, before we get into that cover story, I gotta ask you a question. Are you the same John W. Sparks that's been in dozens of films like Santa Claus and other characters?
I don't know how you came to that conclusion, but yes, I will confess to that.
I knew it. You've been in like 40 films. That's incredible. So my producer Amanda Hansen and I were kind of going through different things. And of course, we've talked before on the digital desk, but then it was like you came up in the International Movie Database. How long has your career been? I mean, you've spanned all these different movies. How'd you get into it?
I have been doing this for a number of years. It happened here in Memphis when I was doing some entertainment coverage of the local film scene. And I did a profile of Red West, who is Elvis's best friend and went on to have his own film career. So I did a feature story on him when he was filming something here back about, 15, maybe close to 20 years ago. And I said, well, this is interesting. Maybe I should take some acting lessons because I know I have a natural ham element to it. And it just grew from there.
I love it. I love it. So everybody who's watching, check out John W. Sparks on. You can look at his films on International Movie Database and really kind of check it out. It's I initially thought that you would just play Santa Claus, but you play all these other things too. In addition,
I've
to
played
Santa Claus.
assassins and bankers and psychiatrists.
Yeah. I know, reporter too.
Once in a while, I get to do that.
All right, excellent. Well, I'm glad that you've helped us solve the mystery. Again, let's talk about this FedEx at 50. Monday, April 17th, that's when FedEx turns 50 years old. And you talk with the president and CEO, Raj Subramaniam there. In his first year as president and CEO, it has been, let's just say, a bumpy year for FedEx. They've had some layoffs. They've had some tough numbers to deal with. What was the mood of that interview that you did with him? Because I've met Raj a few times. Great, personable guy, really nice, super friendly. But, of course, with, some tough economic news, that can hit anybody pretty hard.
It was a tough year last year, and actually the time coming up before that was pretty rough. But it was the time before that, too, that Raj had been with the company for over 30 years. And he's been on a steady track going up. He's worked in Hong Kong and in Toronto, so he has a very keen and complete sense of the international implications of the company. And it was quite clear that he was being groomed to be CEO and president. So I think there are not often very many surprises when it comes to FedEx. And they knew that difficult times were happening. Last September, they had a quarterly report and the stock dived further than it ever had before in the company's history. But Subramaniam also has a very good sense of what needs to be done. There's a very good sense of cool competence to what is going on there. And he said, well, yes, we're having difficult times, and this is why. The demand was down for packages. Inflation was certainly taking a toll. Pandemic wrecked it for everybody. But they had carefully planned and said, well, we're going to do whatever it takes to get back to the top of the game. They have been doing that. A lot of it is $3 to $4 billion worth of cuts that they have been and will continue to make. A lot of that, as you mentioned, were some layoffs. Recently, they announced that they were consolidating the operations of their major divisions. That will be a key part to it as well. So I think Subramaniam came into this prepared, knew what the bad news was going to be, and knew the proper way to respond to it. And in fact, the market, after it took that huge dive in September, has come back up to about where it was at that time since then. So there is a pretty clear sense that he has an idea of where he wants to take this company.
Yeah, and I've seen him on CNBC. I mean, you see him on all the business channels, you know, because so FedEx goes the economy. And another saying is, so FedEx goes, so does Memphis. I mean, so many Memphians are connected either directly or indirectly with the vitality of FedEx. And what's great about the article, John, is it really goes in depth on FedEx, both past, present, future. You ask what FedEx is going to be like in 50 years. And I don't want to give too much away of what the article, the contents of that article, but you know, did you, as a Memphian, as a Mid-Southerner, did you come away from this interview thinking that, hey, look, this is a bump in the road, FedEx is going to be just fine, or did you come away from it as saying, you know, this is a bump in the road, and there's going to be several bumps that may take a while before it gets better?
I had a feeling that they at least have insight into what is going on in the world. In fact, he speaks to that, saying that one of their strengths is that every day they do their deliveries, and every day they get a little bit of an advance at what is going on in the world. And they are parlaying that knowledge into how they operate the company. So this bump in the road, it's been like a series of bumps, really, and they've addressed all of them, I think, pretty well. And I believe that they will continue because they're very much about, they're very much about innovation as well. You can't really be an innovative company unless you are watching what's going on around you. And Raj seems to be very talented at doing that. And of course, Fred Smith, the founder of FedEx, is still on the board. He still has his hand in things, helping guide the overall vision of the company. So I have a feeling that they're feeling quite confident about the direction.
I know that anytime I cover a story, you know, that it's fit into usually a minute 30, or you know, maybe I'll get 2 minutes on a piece. And I know when writers do a story, it's fit into however many amounts of words. Is there something that you could share with us that perhaps didn't make it in the magazine that you thought was interesting? Maybe his demeanor, maybe something that, you know, we don't know about. I mean, we know Raj is a capable guy. He's been with the company like 30 years plus, worked closely with FedEx founder Fred Smith. Anything else you can tell us about him?
I think that he's so professional at this, and he always keeps his cards close to his chest. And you know, this recent consolidation of the operations of the various divisions, we did not have that in the story that we wrote because they announced it afterwards. However, if you read what he's got to say, he talks very much about collaboration, and he means that in a very broad sense. This is an illustration of that. If you read the tea leaves of what he was saying, the idea of getting these operating divisions together will streamline things. It will cut costs, which is a top priority. And so I think that that's something that you know, they're very good at is seeing what's coming. They don't spill.
I get it. I totally get it. Again, this is Memphis Magazine's current edition, the April edition of the magazine here. FedEx at 50 yesterday, today, tomorrow. An exclusive interview with Raj Subramaniam, the president and CEO of FedEx, and the man who wrote the article, John W. Sparks, someone who has been in like 40 films. When's your next film, John? When can we check it out?
Oh, I can't talk about it, but it'll be coming out. Yes.
That is awesome. John W. Sparks, appreciate it. Always a great conversation. Thanks for talking about not only your movie career, but also a great piece, the cover story of the Memphis Magazine. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Home sellers nationwide are coming off a record-breaking run that led to some of the lowest mortgage rates of all time, combined with some of the highest home prices they've ever seen. But 2023, a much different story. The U.S. housing market has been on a steady 12-month decline, resulting in some dropping home values, dramatically rising interest rates. What is the current state of real estate right now? Let's bring in Ryan Rogers. He's a real estate specialist out of Austin, Texas. He joins us on the digital desk. Ryan, give us the current state of real estate with regards to buyers and sellers. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me. So what I would tell them for buyers specifically is, even though rates still may be up a little bit, prices still have come down or starting to flatten. So a year ago, if you were having to overpay, especially in our market, let's say $150,000 on a specific piece of property, and even though the rate was maybe 3.5%, you're maybe paying $150,000 less for that property today, but the rate is of course higher. So it all balances out in many situations. But all across the nation, we're still seeing, decreased buyer activity, and in many markets also increased seller activity. So it's different from market to market for sure.
So I'm still trying to understand exactly what, as a buyer and a seller, what you should do first and foremost if you're in the market right now.
So if you're in the market right now as a buyer, I would focus on a couple of things. Is you want to get pre-approved and understand what you're going to be, what your payment is going to be. Do that first. That's number one. To have your ducks in a row, have your financing in order, and be ready to pull the trigger if you do have one. If you do see something that you like. I always recommend a buyer maybe go and look for a house that's been on the market for a while, maybe 30 days or 60 days, because in this market, no matter where you are, properties that have been on the market 30, 60, 90 days, you have a much better opportunity to get a better price because they've already been able to expose themselves to the marketplace and find out, are they overpriced? And so for the buyer, they can be they can be at a more advantage. It's been on the market 30, 60, 90 days. And go maybe look at those first instead of ones that have been on the market just a year or two, because it will be a more competitive situation. For sellers, my number one advice for sellers is don't price the house too high coming out of the gate. You want to price it very aggressively so that you get as many people through the property as quickly as possible. So be realistic when you set that value in today's market. Another thing that a seller needs to be aware of or ready for is if you have a good buyer with a reasonable offer, and they tend to hesitate a little bit, one thing that you can do is offer a rate buy down. So offering some cost assistance to maybe help them. Instead of a 6.5% interest rate, maybe they can buy that rate down to maybe about 6%, let's say. And then the last thing for sellers is don't test the market by starting high and then continuing to decrease the price, because it'll get stale and it's not a good strategy.
Ryan Rogers, real estate specialist out of Austin, Texas. We appreciate the points, the finer points here, and some tips out there for buyers and sellers. Thanks very much. Good morning, everyone. Andrew Douglas in the Action News 5 digital desk. Tax day is over. Phew, that was close, all right? So we know that we like spending money as Americans, getting the latest and greatest, and the stress of tax day is now behind us. People may be tempted to get something more, maybe splurge a little bit, but hold the phone, okay? Maybe you should budget more. Maybe you should save more. What are you going to do with this tax refund if you're lucky to get one? Let's bring in someone that's going to help us with that. Stephanie O'Connell Rodriguez, a nationally recognized financial expert and author, is here at the digital desk to really talk about maybe some better choices of how to handle that tax refund. And Stephanie, I got to ask, what do you think is the first thing that people should do if they get a refund? Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me here. Well, according to Barclays Bank most recent consumer survey, the majority of Americans are actually hoping to use their tax refund to build their financial security. So we've got some pretty good intentions. Now it comes to how do we put those good intentions to build our financial savings, maybe pay down our debt into practice. And I think in order to do that, it's going to look different for everybody. We got to start by taking stock of our own financial picture and see what we own versus what we owe. And if we owe a lot, maybe we got to take inventory of that debt and see what we owe, to whom, monthly minimum payment, and our interest rate on each debt, so we can prioritize what it looks like to build all those minimum payments into our budget, and then make progress on making payments above the minimum payment on the debt with the highest interest rate, and make progress such that we pay off that debt and then the next highest interest rate debt and then the next, so we can get to our financial security as cost effectively as possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it's not the sexiest thing to say, hey, wait, you got a big chunk of change. You can't go to Europe or the Caribbean. No, you got a budget. You got to pay off that debt, put some in the savings. I mean, I think that is a great first start. Why is it, though, that so many Americans have just a hard time on saving there? Because we're supposed to have, like, what, 2 months of cash reserves just in case for emergency purposes, right?
That's right. At least 2 months in emergency savings, ideally maybe 6 months, maybe more. After the pandemic, we had people out of work for more than 6 months. So you always want to think about, you know, what's the financial security I need and the emotional security I need to get through another potential financial emergency. Now, when you're trying to figure out how to prioritize this along with your other financial goals, it's really important to make sure that you're making the most of the savings that you do have. So if you go open up a savings account at your local brick and mortar bank, oftentimes you're getting very, very low interest rates on that savings account. And we always talk about, I want to make my money work better for me. But if you're getting 0.35% interest on your savings, which is around the national average, you're really not getting a lot there. So I like to shop around with my savings like I do for anything else. And I really like online high yield savings accounts, which offer interest rates much, much higher than the average. Barclays, for example, has a high yield online savings account with a very high interest rate. They've got no minimum balance requirements, no monthly maintenance fees, plus the FDIC insurance. And as you mentioned, people are having a hard time building up this kind of savings, and that's because prices have been on the rise. Inflation has been the big story these last couple of years. Most recent numbers, 5% increase year over year on our cost of living. And that's not just the vacations, the exciting, sexy stuff. That's the stuff we need, like our groceries, like our housing payments. And so if you really want to build this stuff into your budget, I like to make saving, debt payoff, investing a line item on the budget, just like I do those other expenses.
I like that. That's a great idea. High yield savings accounts. And yeah, you're right. Inflation is still outrageous. I know we had something that said it's down to 5%. Well, it shouldn't be higher than 2%. I mean, it's still affecting us. I mean, eggs are outrageous, and airfare, my gosh, I mean, flying anywhere is super high. So I know that a lot of Americans are starting to go back in debt as a result of a lot of things, including inflation. What's the best method an effective method, the most effective, to pay down debt that so many Americans are accumulating right now?
Well, the best method to pay down debt is the one you can stick with, right? So the only way to figure out what that's going to be for you is to, again, start by taking inventory of what you owe and build it into your budget as you're able. I talked about a method that's called the debt avalanche, and that's where you prioritize paying off the debt with the highest interest rate first. For some folks, it might be tackling the debt with the lowest balance first, so you can see the progress you're making, and that then motivates you to make progress on momentum toward paying off the next debt. And know that it's more cost effective to address your highest interest rate debt first. But again, it's what is going to work for you. Even if it costs you more over the life of your loan, if you're going to stick with it, if you see the progress of knocking out that low interest rate debt first, that's fine by me. Just make sure that as you're doing that debt payoff, you also are building your emergency savings, because if something does come up and you do get an unexpected expense like a medical bill or something happens with your car or your home that you must repair, you really want to have that high yield online savings there for you so you can tap into it and not put it on a high interest rate credit card and add more to your debt.
Just curious, Stephanie, for people out there, how do you find a high yield savings account in your hometown, for example? We're in Memphis.
So typically speaking, you're going to find your high yield savings accounts online. And the reason for this is the high interest rates and the annual percentage yields that you get in those online savings accounts, you get them because they have lower costs of operating. If you don't have to maintain the brick and mortar presence, that's a lot of money saved. And that savings gets passed along to the consumer in the form of these lower fees, in the form of these higher rates. And so going to resources like banking.barclaysus.com will give you information about how you can find your high yield online savings account. And it's really easy to set this up. I have done it. It's how I saved for my wedding. It's the first account that I opened with my husband. Great way to combine finances, by the way. And it's really a great way to maximize the money that you are saving, because when you do just go to your default bank that's on the street, there's a value to that, but you don't get a lot for your money in the savings account. And often in CDs, the interest rate isn't as high as these banks that have the high yield online savings account. So I definitely suggest comparison shopping, just like you do for anything else.
This is a conversation I could have forever, and I know it's very popular among so many people. It's just, financial literacy out there. So let me ask you this. If we have thousands of people that tune in each and every morning watching us here on the Digital Desk, if you were to give like bullet points, maybe 3 bullet points for someone that's looking to have better financial success in 2023, the tax season is now over, tax day has come and gone. What would you recommend?
I think you have to take stock of your full financial picture first. A lot of the times we think we know what we're bringing in each month because we know what we make annually or hourly, but what that actually looks like after taxes, after deductions, in our take-home pay can be very different. And we want to make sure we're planning off of our reality, not off of our aspirations. And then on the flip side, we got to take stock of our expenses. We talked about taking inventory of what we owe and to whom, but also this has to include those savings contributions. This has to include our essential living expenses, housing, groceries, utilities, insurance, all of that good stuff. And making sure, again, we're dealing with the reality of what we're spending, not what we think we're spending, because there can be a surprising gap between the two. And I think the third piece of this is maintaining accountability. So whatever's going to work for you to keep your finances top of mind, I like to say managing my money is a practice. It's not something I do once a year on tax day, and it's not something I do when there's a crisis, because that's just reactive money management. I want to have proactive money management. And so I think a bit like, I don't go to one yoga class and say, all right, I'm done, I'm fit for life, right? It doesn't work that way. I got to go back and I got to go back, and I get better every time I do it. Same thing happens with my money. I check my money on a daily basis. You don't have to be as much of a money nerd as I am to have a good, healthy relationship with your money, but you can certainly go ahead and checking in on your money once a week to see where it's going, tracking your budget, keeping yourself accountable, and making sure you're maximizing it with these tools like the high yield online savings, CDs, investment accounts, so that you really get your money's worth.
I love it, Stephanie. We've talked about a lot this morning. Where can we go to get some more information, including these tips that we talked about?
Yes, so it is Financial Literacy Month. I know we talked about how important financial literacy is. So you can head to this portal at banking.barclaysus.com. Again, that's banking.barclaysus.com, and go to the resources tab. There's a lot of tools, articles, information about how to manage these money goals, how to get the most from your money, and how to prioritize when you have a lot of money goals at once.
Okay, Stephanie O'Connell Rodriguez, we really appreciate the conversation this morning. I think we helped a lot of people with this and just thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks.
I hope so. Thank you, Andrew.
Good morning, everyone. Andrew Douglas in the Action News 5 Digital Desk. April is Global Child Nutrition Month. May is National Allergy Awareness Month, and that includes food allergies, and that's what we're talking about right now. Each year, about 75,000 infants in the U.S. are born with a cow milk allergy. It's the most common food allergy in infancy. And so in those cases, pediatricians, oftentimes they'll recommend a material elimination diet, which deals with breastfeeding. It deals with switching to maybe a hypoallergenic formula. Let's talk more about this allergy right now with Dr. Jenna Timbo, a pediatrician. She's going to answer some big questions when it comes to infants and babies and this cow milk allergy. Good morning, Dr. Timbo. Let's talk about this allergy. How common is it?
Yeah, so it is incredibly common. It's the most common food allergy in infants. It affects approximately 75,000 infants every year in the United States. So it's out there. We got to be aware of it.
Let me ask you this. What are the signs of it? You know, there's so many people that are having babies in my work environment, newsroom here. They're constantly having babies, and so I think that that's happening all over the country, of course. And I would think that they would want to know some of those first signs of an allergy like this.
Yeah, so some of the signs are fairly specific and maybe easier to recognize. For example, if you're starting to introduce foods to your baby or you're supplementing with regular formula and they have an allergic reaction like hives or something of that sort, that's a little bit easier to recognize. But there's also a lot of non-specific signs or symptoms to be aware of as well. Those could include just having a really fussy baby. Your baby might be labeled as having colic. They could have blood or mucus in the stools or have symptoms of reflux. They could maybe not be gaining weight as well as they should. And those are things to be aware of as other signs of cow milk allergy. My own daughter has a cow milk allergy that was diagnosed around 4.5 months old. And before her allergic reaction, she was absolutely miserable breastfeeding. She wouldn't sleep. She was so fussy. And throughout her diagnosis, we wound up stopping breastfeeding and changing her to a hypoallergenic formula. And it changed our lives. So if you have concerns about your baby's symptoms, definitely talk with your doctor. We're happy to help. And that's why I'm partnering with Nutricia to bring Pepticate to the United States. It's a hypoallergenic formula that's been available in Europe for 30 years, and now it's an option here as well.
Okay, let's talk about how breastfeeding is involved in all this and more about that hypoallergenic formula you just showed us.
Yeah, so the hypoallergenic formula basically takes a big cow milk protein and breaks it down into much smaller pieces. So it's called an extensively hydrolyzed formula. The protein's very small, and it makes it difficult for the immune system to recognize as an allergy. So the babies then can drink it and tolerate it well without having an allergic reaction. One of the benefits of this formula in particular is that it contains lactose, which makes it taste better. So that's another issue that I went through with my own child is we were giving her multiple different options of formulas for babies with allergies, but she wouldn't take them because they tasted terrible. And so we felt stuck in that we were running out of options. So I'm really excited to have this as an option in the U.S.
How is breastfeeding involved in all this? I mean, do you recommend to some of your patients or patients' parents to breastfeed longer? How does it work?
It's really a case-by-case basis. So I would definitely recommend if you have questions, because that's a huge decision to make to potentially stop breastfeeding and change to a formula, definitely talk to your doctor because we can help guide you through that on if that's the right choice to make.
How can caregivers navigate the current baby formula shortage if their child is diagnosed with a milk allergy, doctor?
So thankfully, we're in a little bit better place now than we were in 2022 with the formula shortage, with the shelves being restocked. But if you're having trouble locating a formula or a hypoallergenic formula, definitely talk to your doctor because we can help give recommendations as far as where you could find it or what options you may have.
Okay, this is very interesting. I know we have thousands of people watching us each and every morning. I'm sure there's plenty of parents out there that are watching as well. If some parents want to get some more information about what we talked about here, cow milk allergy for infants, where can they go?
You can go to pepticate.com to learn more, or of course, talk to your doctor. We're happy to help.
All righty, Dr. Jenna Timbo, pediatrician, talking about this cow milk allergy, very common among infants. We appreciate the info, doctor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are you in the market for a new ride? You know, either a new car, a used car. Of course, that'll be new for you. Well, the car buying game has changed dramatically. Shoppers, a lot of times, they can go online, they can do their research, look at various buying tools to their advantage. That can lead to better deals, smarter buying decisions, higher satisfaction in the long run. So let's get some expert advice on how to navigate the car buying process. I'm joined now on the Action News 5 digital desk by Motor Trend editor Duncan Brady, who's live with us. And I can tell that you have a couple of cars there, Duncan. Good morning. Tell us about your top tips for buying a car right now.
Hey, Andrew. Good morning. Thanks for having me. So if we have one tip, it's that you got to do your research. You know, you want to be the expert when you walk into that dealership. And as you mentioned, folks who use online tools like the Buyer's Guide, who become the expert, they're the ones who get better deals, who have higher long-term satisfaction.
I see you have a couple of cars there. Tell us about the cars that you're right now in the middle of.
We do. So we have an ultimate ranking system here at Motor Trend, and these are two of our favorite vehicles. The Kia Telluride you see here, this is our favorite three-row family SUV. It was our SUV of the year a few years back, and this year brings a mid-cycle refresh. So tweaks to the already excellent styling, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with. There's new tech inside, plus you get a couple off-road variants, including the X-Pro on your screen right now. Did you know this Kia has 14 interior upholstery options? That's bananas. That's Bentley stuff. It's easy to see, especially considering that the base model has the big screen, has Apple CarPlay, has adaptive cruise control. Easy to see why this is our favorite three-row SUV. And then, of course, we have the Volvo XC40 Recharge, one of our favorite electric compact luxury SUVs. I said electric, there's no engine under there, motors and batteries. And this Volvo is really quick. I was giggling the first time I drove it. It's quicker than some Mustangs and Camaros, but it's a Volvo, right? These are the folks who brought us the 3-point safety belt back in 1959. So it's really safe. It has all of the driver assist active safety features you want, but it's also very crash worthy. It gets great crash test ratings. It's a 2022 IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus. You're seeing the interior right now. It's pretty luxurious. We have a Google-based infotainment and navigation system. There's Apple CarPlay. The car we have in studio right now has a really handsome vegan tailored wool upholstery option. You know, I'm a big fan of this Volvo.
Hey, Duncan, what's the MSRPs on both of those vehicles? They, of course, look very nice.
Good question. I'm not exactly sure. I believe the Kia is somewhere in that $45,000 range, and the Volvo might be closer to $60,000.
Okay, so, the last year we were dealing with a lot of supply chain issues with cars to the point where people were going for used cars, and used cars were more expensive in certain situations than the new cars. Is that supply chain issue with all the computer chips, has that been resolved now?
Getting better, yes. Dealers have a lot more inventory than they had a few years ago, and we're not dealing with the same level of chip shortage that we had in years past.
Okay, so I know you are an editor for Motor Trend. They put out all kinds of publications year-round, including the Buyer's Guide. Tell me how it enhances someone who's in the market for a new ride.
So we talked about doing your research earlier. The Buyer's Guide is our research headquarters. We have 3 outstanding tools plus vehicle overview pages on literally every car on sale. We have a great team here in El Segundo, and I want to talk about those tools. So we have Car Match. That's the closest you can get to giving me a call and asking for personalized buying advice. Really, these are the same questions I'd ask my mom, my dad, if their name popped up on my phone. You answer those questions, you see, and we give you a few recommendations. The whole process takes about 30 seconds. I mentioned Ultimate Car Rankings. We rank nearly every car on sale, cars, trucks, SUVs, in over 45 segments. So, if you want to see what's best in some automotive segment, we have the answers for you there. And it's all backed by Motor Trend's testing expertise and the features, safety, fuel economy that buyers want to know about. Once you narrow it down, have a few options, Car Compare will save you a bunch of time. Instead of going to dealership websites, sifting through all that sales nonsense, you can see the pricing, the fuel economy, all the specs right there in one place.
Let me ask you this, Duncan. We have thousands of people that watch us on the Digital Desk each and every morning. And if someone is thinking, I probably by the end of this year need to start looking for a new vehicle, where would you tell them to start? I mean, give me, if you would, maybe 3 bullet points. What should they do?
Sure. So you probably already know your budget, right? But then you want to think about, what kind of car do I need? Do I need a bunch of cargo space? Do I need off-road capability? Then you'll go for an SUV. But if you prioritize, say, fuel economy and driving dynamics, then you'd go for something like a hatchback or sedan. But again, you just got to do the research. We're the ones who get the chance and have the privilege to drive all of the cars on sale, more or less. And I really trust the folks on staff here to give strong recommendations and make sure folks buy the right car.
Okay, Motor Trend editor Duncan Brady, we really appreciate your time this morning. Thanks for the insight, the info, and take care of yourself, man.
Thanks for having me. All the good stuff is at motortrend.com/cars.